Test, test, there we go. Hello and welcome, everyone. It's an honor to have you here this evening for our City Commission business meeting for Monday, June 6th. You're going to have to bear with us a little bit this evening. We have a brand new sound system, so that means commissioners are working with new equipment with a different kind of on-off switch and perhaps a more sensitive microphone, so we'll be careful not to speak too loudly as we get into this. So once again, a warm welcome, and I will be calling this meeting to order of the Kalamazoo City Commission on this beautiful evening, Monday, June 6th. Clerk Borland, please call the roll.
Commissioner Decker.
Present.
Commissioner Hess.
Present.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Present.
Commissioner Juarez.
Present.
Commissioner Pradel.
Present.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Present.
Mayor Anderson.
Here. It's very nice to see everyone this evening on the commission. Appreciate that we get to spend this time together. A lot of work, a lot of things on our agenda this evening. So for our opening ceremony is how we start off. We have Sister Betsy Mayer from the Congregation of St. Joseph to give the invocation. We're honored to have you here. Please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Sister Mayer.
I wish to take this opportunity to thank you, commissioners, and those involved here, for your willingness to respond to the call to serve our community as elected officials on this City Commission. I speak as a longtime resident of the Kalamazoo community and as a sister of St. Joseph, along with my sisters, to offer our support and our appreciation for the rewarding yet often difficult work of making decisions, listening to responses from a variety of residents about many and varied issues that come to your attention. I am honored to offer this brief invocation at this meeting tonight. It was 78 years ago today that 156,000 Allied troops landed on Normandy Beach in France in Operation Overlord, now remembered as D-Day. By the end of the first day, 10,000 American troops were dead or missing, quite possibly lost at sea. This bloody battle was a major turning point in a war in which so many lives are lost to protect democracy. Please join me in prayer as we reflect on the echoes of this day. Holy One, let not our lives be lost in vain. Let us do our part in our time to disarm fascism, authoritarianism, and all destructive attempts to squelch a free and democratic people. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I think I saw County Commissioner Ray here this evening. I don't see any other representatives from other of our partner public entities, but wanted to recognize Ms. Ray. On our agenda this evening, we have two proclamations. The first one is for National Fatherhood Awareness Month, and Commissioner Hess is going to be reading that proclamation. In advance of her reading that, though, we are graced with the presence of Pastor Kevin Lavender Sr., who will be providing a prayer for us in advance of that proclamation.
Let us pray. Most gracious and loving Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening in this chamber, Father, with encouragement in our hearts for these commissioners, and we ask your blessings upon them Continue to give them wisdom and guidance. We ask, Lord God, that you would honor the sacrifice that they make. We pray that we would support and not cancel when decisions are made that are difficult and not popular. We think today of the Fatherhood Network and this historic occasion. I humbly bow as a father, standing with my firstborn son, who is leading these men to stand in the gap. They stood up, they stepped forward, and they stand. I'm asking, Lord, for this proclamation, that you would continue to give them the courage to muffle the myth that fathers don't care. Empower them to stand against the collaboration of the total emasculation of men today. I'm asking, Father, for your blessings and encouragement, that we truly would do what we're doing tonight, of what you said, to honor your father and your mother. So thank you. We ask your blessings for this proclamation in the precious name of your son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Pastor Lavender. So we have this special proclamation this evening, and Kevin Lavender Jr. from the Fatherhood Network of Kalamazoo is here to receive that proclamation. I will be bringing it down here by the podium while Commissioner Hess reads it. Commissioner Hess.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here. Kevin, if you'd like to step up to the podium.
I'm going to ask my brothers to come up with me. This is a team effort. So let's clap it up for them as well.
You want a picture first? Or we could do it afterwards, too.
Either way. Either way. Just stay behind you. Just say a couple words.
Thank you. This is a proclamation for the National Fatherhood Recognition Awareness Month in Kalamazoo, given June of 2022. Whereas June is nationally recognized in the United States as the month that highlights awareness and importance of fatherhood. And whereas it should be known that Fatherhood Network is a community-based organization in Kalamazoo led by fathers from Kalamazoo that provides support to empower fathers to aid in improving the function, advocacy, and narrative of fathers in their role in society and their families in Kalamazoo County. And whereas healthy father engagement and presence in the household is a central factor in positive well-being of families, neighborhoods, and youth, and fathers who actively participate in the lives of their children, families, and communities provide a steady source of stability and support. And whereas, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, 18.3 million children, 1 in 4, live without a biological, step, or adoptive father in the home. Consequently, there is a father factor in nearly all of societal ills facing America and our communities today. And whereas children in fatherless homes are at a greater risk of poverty and infant mortality, and more likely to have an unsuccessful academic attainment, behavioral issues, and abuse substances, and go to prison with a higher chance of joining gangs. And whereas the Institute for Family Studies states, it has long been known that father presence in the household is important for the positive well-being of families, neighborhoods, and youth. Dads who actively participate in the lives of their families provide a steady source of stability and support. And whereas supporting healthy, engaged fathers in turn supports the health, safety, and well-being of our Kalamazoo community as a whole, and the Fatherhood Network of Kalamazoo will be a resource, advocate, and supporter of all fathers in Kalamazoo. And whereas our community members, organizations, and local governments, agencies must understand the importance of fathers' well-being and demonstrate a commitment to the support, advocacy, and well-being of fathers in our community. Now, therefore, on behalf of the 54th City Commission, I, Commissioner Jean Hess, on behalf of David F. Anderson, Mayor of the City of Kalamazoo, do hereby recognize June as Fatherhood Recognition Month in the City of Kalamazoo and encourage all citizens to recognize the importance of fatherhood in our community. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you for your support, for your love, for your encouragement. I want to give a shout out to all the fathers in Kalamazoo, the father figures, and around the world, because really this is a global community. I want to give a shout out to my father standing here, all the fathers present, the ones virtual and in person. But really we want to give a real quick thank you to KidNet, to the Stryker Johnson Foundation, to Adam Slate Law, to everyone in this room, and I'm probably missing someone, so I'm going to stand back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I won't take too long, but just want to thank you, Commission. Thank you, Brother Kevin, and want to give thanks to all of the fathers that have came before us. So to mention a few, I'll mention, Moses Walker. I'll mention Charles Warfield. I'll mention Kevin Lavender Sr. I'll mention David Johnson. I'll mention Walt Jones. I'll mention Mr. Miller, and many, many more. The proclamation said that fatherhood is a central piece to a lot of societal ills. So we see that work in the work that we're doing with the Fatherhood Network, in the work of supporting men and fathers, trickling down to all of our issues, whether that be gun violence, bullying, educational outcomes, and many, many more. So this work is serious. We thank you, Commission. We look forward to continuing this work and making sure that all fathers that are looking to be healthy and engaged with their children can do that and be successful in doing that in the City of Kalamazoo. So we thank you. We look forward to continuing to do this work. This is a historic moment for us. And shout out to the babies like mine that's kicking me right now. So as a side note, there's probably a lot we could do to make City Hall a little bit more child and fatherhood friendly. So if you want to do that work, we can talk about that. Thank you.
Special shout out to all fathers. Thank you once again for being here. We do have another proclamation. It's actually, consistent with our first proclamation here and what we're talking about our efforts. And it's for Justice Against Bullying and School Awareness Month for June 2022. It'll be read by Commissioner Pradle. And here to receive the proclamation is Gwendolyn Hooker and the JABS Club members and staff. So please all come forward.
While everybody is getting gathered up here, I just want to take a moment to just mention and echo some other thoughts here. It is music to my ears as a young father myself to hear young voices in the audience, and I hope the fact that your kiddo might be making a little noise is music to everybody else's ear, because the first step to creating the next generation of people who want to be here and want to give input and be engaged in the process is starting them very young. So, thank you. So whereas Justice Against Bullying at School, or JABS, has served the youth impacted by bullying in Kalamazoo since 2006, and whereas during that time, JABS has raised awareness and provided education, support, and empowerment to over 327 gun violence in youth who have been affected by bullying and/or gun violence in some way. And whereas JABS strongly supports the inclusion of students in the development of anti-bullying policymaking process and provides a platform to form and organize student groups to advocate for their own right to a safe, bully-free, nonviolent education space. And whereas anti-bullying initiatives like JABS are proving to be transformative in combating the childhood traumatic effects of bullying in academic environments, as well as enhancing better outcomes for students. Now, therefore, I, Chris Pradle, on behalf of the 53rd City Commission and Mayor David F. Anderson, 54th, sorry, of the City of Kalamazoo, do hereby recognize June 2022 to be Justice Against Bullying School JABS Awareness Month, and call all citizens to recognize and support JABS for strengthening our community and holding on to the promise for everyone, especially school-age youth in Kalamazoo.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so very much for continuing to recognize and support Justice Against Bullying at School. Not going to take more than my allotted time, but I do want to have a special thanks for Commissioner Pradle, who continues to bring this forth and acknowledge Justice Against Bullying at School Awareness Month, as well as support Justice Against Bullying at School ongoing for many, many years, as has Commissioner Hess and Commissioner Hoffman. So we really, really appreciate the commissioners understanding and seeing how important it is to support youth as they become respectable, productive members of society, regardless of what types of issues that they encounter. We believe that educating, supporting, and empowering youth impacted by bullying promotes equity and creates promise-ready students. That is our mission, and that is what we stand on. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Mayor Anderson, and thank you all to the commission. Thank you so much. Our co-founder is a little shy, but we do have one of our co-founders here, Justice Calvert, and just want to give a special recognition for her, because without her, JABS would not be possible. So thank you so very much for having us tonight.
Commissioners, you have before you the agenda for tonight's meeting. Are there any changes you would like to see? Seeing none from the commission, is anyone in the audience here to speak on an item on the consent agenda? That's anything under item G. If so, you'll need to ask that the item be moved to the regular agenda. Are there any such requests?
Number 4, number 11, and number 13, please.
So that is item G4, item G11, and G13 will be moved to the regular agenda. Yes? There will be an opportunity for public comment, yes. So we have some work before us to begin this meeting. Manager Whitson, would you like to introduce that?
Yes, Your Honor. We have a presentation tonight on the draft Community Sustainability Plan, and Jamie McCarthy, our Sustainability Director, Development Coordinator, will be giving our presentation this evening. Jamie?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you for that introduction, City Manager. I'm Jamie McCarthy, and I'm coming from the Community Planning and Economic Development Department and several other departments who have worked together to develop the city's first Community Sustainability Plan, or CSP, as you see here this evening. So I'm going to start by bringing us back to 2019. In October of that year, City Commission adopted this resolution declaring a climate emergency in Kalamazoo. The resolution recognizes the threat of climate change that Kalamazoo faces, and it calls for local government and community partners to come together and take bold action to really fight against the worst changes related to climate. So now I'm here just over 2 years later, and I'm really pleased this evening to present to you a draft action plan, what we've been working toward to address this and other sustainability issues in the city. The CSP sets a comprehensive vision. It's really helping give us a directive and give us as staff and a community a common plan to get behind and begin implementation right away. It builds on the city's goals around environmental responsibilities that are part of the city's strategic vision and IK 2025. And it really speaks to the tremendous amount of work. This is a 10-year plan, but it's anticipating really decades of work ahead of us to protect the city's citizens, its natural environment, and community health. What's before you today isn't a strict climate action plan. It doesn't address only climate. It doesn't have strict greenhouse gas information in there. It really is meant to be holistic. It's looking at a number of different environmental, water quality, all sorts of items that were brought up originally in Imagine Kalamazoo and kind of carried forward to this sustainability plan. However, the plan does outline things that we need to tackle very soon so that we can set, measure, and meet some very meaningful targets when it comes to climate. And you're going to see that at the end of the plan. So what I want to do tonight is just cover some aspects of the plan, give you some time to get familiar with it, and then at the end of the evening I'll show, or the end of the slide deck, I'll show where folks can access that plan, and then we'll be bringing an action forward to you to your next meeting. So probably some really important guiding principles to be aware of when anyone opens up this plan. We have 4 principles that I'll explain. First, that this is a local plan, and so it takes into consideration our local sphere of influence, political realities. There are certainly state laws that we can't necessarily change at the city, but this plan takes it down to the local level and really tries to highlight what it is we have control of. A lot of land use planning, transportation, things that we can do here in Kalamazoo. And it's also community-wide, so it's not just looking at city facilities. It is community-wide, but those are certainly part of the plan. Second, the committees we worked with and the folks we spoke to certainly felt like the idea of shared prosperity should be weaved throughout the plan. This is sometimes in the climate world called a just transition. It's this idea that everyone must benefit from sustainability actions, and further than that, those with the most need or burden should be prioritized when we're approaching this work and we're setting priorities. Third is climate accountability. So here in Kalamazoo, we must take responsibility for the role that we have in causing climate change. And this plan does that, and it sets a goal of net zero carbon emissions by 2050 or earlier. And again, we don't have every step that it's going to take. We don't have every policy. We don't have all the technology or all the dollars. But this is an intention that we're setting, that we're going to start today, and we're going to, over the next 10 and 20 plus years, we're all going to head toward that goal. And then fourth, the CSP recognizes that people and nature are very interconnected, and we can use and protect nature to make our community more and more resilient. Okay. So I'll cover just a few of the community engagement activities that kind of launched and formed the CSP. So 2 years ago, we formed a steering committee. We had some internal staff members and we had external stakeholders, and they really helped build those guiding principles and inform the 10 goals that you're going to see here in a moment. We did an online survey. We had almost 600 folks from the community complete the survey, and just to understand what are the sustainability goals, what are folks doing, what do they want to see, what would they need help with, what resources are they going to need. And then certainly in the last 2 years, COVID has impacted this community engagement. Later on, we pivoted and took all the information we had gathered and reached out and formed some staff review teams, and we used staff to help us weigh in on actions and priorities. So that's what you see in front of you today in the action table that's in the plan. So here you can see there are 10 goals in the plan, and they're grouped around 4 different themes. The first 3 goals are based on increasing sustainable transportation and making land use choices to support that. The next 3 goals are really focused on energy. So this is both energy efficiency in our existing and new buildings, and then ways we can really accelerate or encourage clean, renewable energy in Kalamazoo. There are 2 goals that are really focused on protecting and improving the environment and protecting community health. And the 2 goals are focused on some of our waste and recycling goals and bringing more local food, supporting the movements that we have here. Something to look for in the plan, there are 29 different strategies that are going to help lead us toward these goals. And the graphic you see on the left here, there's one for every one of the strategies, and it kind of lays out different actions that we think we're going to need to take to implement this strategy. Actions will be flexible, and I think we're going to have a lot more engagement that's going to help us right down to the community and the block level decide what is it that makes sense for different communities, different areas of the city. But we wanted to spend some time prioritizing these strategies. There are 29 of them. We've got to start on this plan right away. What can we do with the resources we have now? And so we built a framework to help us kind of score and determine what are we going to bring to the community? What are we going to recommend to you as some of our first strategies after this plan is adopted? So we created a sustainability score, and you're going to see that for every strategy. There's a sliding scale of actionable to more aspirational. So our actionable things, we have resources, we have the city playing maybe a lead role, the timeline is short, the barriers are low, these are things that are ready to launch, we should do these now. And then there are more complex or more expensive, or for whatever reason, things that we still want to do, but we know they're going to take time or resources, and so they kind of slide down the scale. And then we added in a sustainability score because we knew, the money and the capacity isn't the only reason we pursue things. Sometimes it's the right thing to do for other reasons. And so sustainability score makes up about half of the ranking score, and that we had the Environmental Concerns Committee help weigh in and score those. So we added feasibility plus sustainability, and we got a priority rank. It was strategies could score anywhere from 0 to 27 points, if you will, and we started sorting those out and taking a look. And so the strategies you see in the plan today are here. We're calling them our top 6 strategies for sustainability. These are what we really want to focus on in the next 1 to 2 years. 3 of them you can see, the top and the bottom 2 are from that energy chapter, and really the retrofit and weatherize, I'll show you in a moment, but that's really seems to align with a lot of what folks feel like is important for city to tackle and take on first. And then the other 3 there are all the top scorers from the different themes. So we get some variety, but they were all very high scoring strategies. We also have what we're calling our high priority wait list. We knew there were things that were really important to the community, but they didn't necessarily score out in this framework that we created. Most often they had a factor that was a bit limiting, whether that was technology or a big plan that had to come together. Maybe it's a really big price tag, or it's just going to take a long time. So we're kind of tracking these, keeping our eye on them. Maybe if one of those factors change, we have a new pool of funding, we can flip those to a priority pretty quickly. Or in the case of some of these that have a really long timeline, we're just going to have to be incremental and very intentional about chipping away at them over time. And so we've kind of put them on this, put them on our radar in this way. Over the last 2 months, we've gone out to the community, introduced the plan, we've done some in-person and virtual town halls, and we asked folks to give us some feedback on these. Did we get the priorities right? Do these feel like these are important things to Kalamazoo that we should work on first? And we've gotten some really positive feedback. I think most folks who gave us online or some of the poster feedback that we requested all really felt like these were important things. We had just a couple of things where folks maybe disagreed or thought we should focus on something different, but there was a lot of alignment here. You can see that number 2 and 6, so again, that energy efficient buildings, weatherizing, and then investing in community health programs tended to get a couple more yeses. Things like circular economy and residential density, I think, scored just slightly lower. But overall, it seemed like programs that would be beneficial to individuals and neighborhoods tended to score really high. We asked the same question of our wait list, and we had stormwater number 4 and flood mitigation, certainly a lot of alignment there, folks feeling like those are important things for the city to continue to look into and tackle. Electrify city fleet got just a little less folks checking that box, and I think, again, that one doesn't feel as community-based. Those benefits don't feel as tangible, although we had quite a few people kind of directly point to that one as a way to really help reduce carbon emissions. So we're working to get this, like I said, onto your agenda. The idea here is that we felt the feedback was really positive and that the priorities will stay as they are in the draft plan right now, certainly be evaluated and adapted as needed over time. I wanted to give you a little sense of what staff's preparing for and what the first year will look like after adoption. Right now, we're already planning on putting in a request to you all, a mid-year request, that we can get a new staff person in place to really start launching this right away. We feel like this needs to be kind of that coordinator level, a new planner, someone who can really hit the ground running, doing things and organizing for us. We know that we plan to establish an interdepartmental work group because so much of this work is within what we already do. We need all of that expertise. We need a way to convene and regularly bring that group together and work on this action plan. The new staff person and the working group are also going to be able to work on and convene more neighborhoods, more community members. We know that right away with solar, we want to engage with specific neighborhoods and areas, understand what people are excited about, what are some major barriers, what would be meaningful, what's a good way to do solar in different neighborhoods. And so that'll be important work to set up in the first year. We actually are in the phase of already developing work plans. We have some early work that really spurred from just the planning process and talking about all of these ideas, taking advantage of some funding sources. That'll continue this year. We'll really nail down what it is these 6 priority strategies are going to take. We know there are a lot of other funding opportunities out there, grant, state, federal, other granting agencies that have shared goals, and we think that that's a good way for us to pursue outside funding in the first year, but we certainly have some FFES for 2023 as well. And then we just really want to establish this sort of annual cycle of continuous improvement where we're implementing, we're reporting through a public board, similar to how we do Imagine Kalamazoo, and then reprioritizing, revisiting that scoring framework and really working on the best opportunities that we have where we see a lot of resources lining up. So with that, I just want to point folks to where they can get a copy, check out the plan. As I said, this will appear back on your agenda in a couple of weeks for action. In the meantime, folks can go to imaginekalamazoo.com, navigate to the projects, and you'll see it under sustainability. You can always stop by the CPED offices on North Rose or contact us. We'll get you a paper copy to check out. Questions can be sent to myself. You can send them to the city, or folks can call 311 and get to us. And I just want to encourage everyone for comments that we'll be taking those during the City Commission meeting coming up in 2 weeks. So with that, I want to thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Jamie McCarthy. Appreciate you being here. Questions from Commission for staff? Commissioner Prado?
Thank you, Jamie. So thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you for all your work. Thank you to the ECC and Chair Wright for all the work that you guys have put into this. A huge deal, huge deal. And I was curious to get your thoughts. So this is a 10-year plan. Pretty soon, believe it or not, we're going to be talking about another kind of Imagine Kalamazoo style plan. And I was curious to kind of get your thoughts about how you see this weaving in between Imagine Kalamazoo 2025 and what comes next. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I think we've talked a bit about that, and we've seen some cities go from more of a standalone plan to integrating it into their master plan. I think with this plan at this stage and where it has a lot of energy-related plans, it has a lot of facility-type management elements, fleet. I think some of that really necessitates it to be its own plan, and certainly I think the feedback that we get through the next comprehensive plan, the next Imagine Kalamazoo, would be used in the same way in that annual cycle of understanding what's important to the community and where we should be doing our work.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Prado. Any other questions? Yeah, Vice Mayor Cooney.
Thank you, Jamie. That was really helpful. So I'm hearing you say we got the plan now, but we're going to have somebody in place to implement this plan, right? We're going to have to hire somebody. Isn't that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think we need to have some capacity. We've recognized that that helps us get off the ground. I think the best way for us to do that is to have someone who can, really get out there and be an organizer and facilitate. So we're thinking that's, a new planner, someone in the CPED department, and then we can evaluate and see where it grows from there. There's kind of an interesting dichotomy in cities in Michigan. There are very few that have big staffs. Most communities are, looking to hire that one person, and I know we'll be working with our peer communities and trying to kind of figure it out all together. How do we build capacity, knowing that all communities have limited resources? The plan also points to some regional collaboration, knowing that most cities in our region are facing very similar challenges. They have very similar greenhouse gas footprints. And so the plan points to staff trying to do a lot more collaboration and figure out where we can get efficiencies, where we can work with our neighbors and try to maximize our work.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Well, I want to thank you very much. All right. Thank you very much, Amy, for all your work. This has been taken a while. I know that. I appreciate that very much. Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Just a reminder for those of us on the commission is we have got communication from our own Environmental Concerns Committee in support of this. And Denise Keel, I believe, from Kalamazoo Climate Action, sent a supportive email as well. So good community response there. No action on this item tonight, just informational. So once again, thank you. I look forward to this being on our agenda. Next on our agenda is the opportunity general public comments. Speakers will each have 3 minutes for their comments. We will start with in-person speakers and then go to call-in speakers. People who want to offer comments via phone should call 888-382-9556. Right now and through the end of the public comment period. Please note, if you are a caller and want to comment on the public hearing items, those are items F1 and F2, you will need to call now, as we will not be taking call-in comments during the public hearing. This is a question I don't need to ask. Usually I ask if there's anyone in the audience who wants to make comments. Well, that's obvious that there is this evening. So please come to the podium, state your name and whether you live in the city, and then at some time you can sign in and then we'll make sure we have your accurate name. Welcome.
I did sign in, but before my time starts, can I make a disability accommodation request for the next meeting, please? I would like that there be space available for people with service dogs that is not so tight, maybe in the front or in the back, a space held available, because I can't move my service animal through the middle rows. And that would be a good accommodation for people with disabilities such as wheelchairs as well. Are these already available, or is that something that I can count on next time?
We have all heard your request. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. My name is Melissa Ray, zip code 49009, and thanks to Gretchen Whitmer for approving service dogs and training so that I can get my dog out into public spaces. And I'll hope that you guys will accommodate that as well. I recently stated that if you don't want to hear my words, then you're welcome to my silence, and you guys are not so lucky. I am here because this town is riddled with corruption, and some of you are poor leaders. Poor leaders traffic their community to believe this way of life is good enough. Poor leaders bully and harm anyone they cannot traffic in the direction that corruption demands. And before anyone gets their panties in a bunch, when the truth feels like an attack, it's because you're living a lie. Before each community meeting, I receive electronic attacks, idle threats. I get followed, and the latest attempt was to involve me in some check fraud scam, which seemed like cake, which was followed by icing of the police ignoring me. And that was not this local police department, so don't get excited, guys. I figured I better step forward and get my dialogue started, because apparently people think if they scare me that I will be silent. And what I was doing was healing from trauma, from bullying and abuse. As I stated, I have a disability. I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder. which started from early childhood abuse, severe bullying, abuse from employers, medical abuse, and being trafficked. This town is disgusting toward women and children. Disgusting. An example, I used to work with international students at Western Michigan University. My position was a terminal role, which means it gets renewed annually. I met with Tom Marks and Rebecca Solomon, where I asked them to stop the bullying attacks as an accommodation request. They denied my request for accommodations and stated that it was not a reasonable accommodation request to ask anyone to change their leadership style. Bullying is not a leadership style. It is an act of violence that causes trauma. Bullying is also an illegal act known as psychological abuse that is present in the legally defined components of human trafficking law. These components are force, coercion, and/or fraud. After my terminal position was ended, my role that was still needed was granted to an employee with less seniority than I had, canceling me from a job and taking away any ability that I had left for financial stability because I couldn't handle any more bullying. And I was collapsing to my eating disorder as a result of it. Bullying is not a leadership style. It is an act of psychological abuse, and it is a reflection of weakness and of Satan. The presence of such evil in leadership speaks volumes for the quality of our community, and our youth deserve better, and better starts with the adults. And I will be back.
Thank you. Next, please.
I'm very upset. I'm the sustainability, community planning, sustainability, whatever that is. I listened to her speak about needing this to happen immediately. And you guys gave her your undivided attention, and I'm pretty sure they're going to get it done. But the people who need the sustainability are your citizens. Y'all don't hear them at all. You did a rezoning. The people that are in the flood areas, they can't even get help. None of the funding. A lot of those people have asthma. They're dealing with the last flood. They have black mold. Rebecca Kick made a comment when we did that special retreat about some type of home repair. And I called Rebecca. Rebecca wasn't there. She had someone call me. They referred me to KNHS. That was an insult. For you not to even know, the people that work there not know about this program. The other one, I spoke with the principal of Washington's Writer Academy regarding the speeding. Been wanting a speed bump on Lay Boulevard. Just this past weekend, your officer could have been killed because there is such a dark area. And when we called about this party, they did a shooting in the air, you know, I know it's graduation, but they sent one officer. The only reason they sent one officer is because I threatened to text Vernon Coakley. But she was asking me at 12 o'clock at night, how many people out there? How in the hell do I know how many people out there at midnight? And then they sent one officer. His life could have been in danger. So I'm saying to you guys, care more about your citizens. Honestly, guys, seriously. The last time I seen a commission do anything for the citizens was when my grandmother, me being 16 years old at the time, and you listen to the community. Y'all don't listen to the community. You like to hear yourselves talk. I need action, less talk. Okay? Seriously. And that's on the real. And I'm out. This will probably be the last time I come down here. We need to see things. We know it takes time, but dang it, do it. It's like the Nike commercial. Just do it. So I love you guys, I do.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, and it's really happy to see all you guys, and I appreciate everything that you guys do. My name is Maggie Adams, and I do reside in the city of Kalamazoo, and I'm speaking today as a member of the Isaac Anti-Racism Team, and of course, a community member. I asked the City Commission to reflect on the spirit of putting together the Kalamazoo Citizens Public Safety Review and Appeal Board in the first place, and whether or not this process is able to fulfill its mission. I'm disheartened to see that a recommendation by this review board was declined by City Manager Jim Ritzville. And I'm referring to this review board's findings that Kalamazoo public safety officers failed to provide adequate medical care to a protester after their arrest in October of 2021. This review board also recommended that City Manager Jim Ritzville reverse Chief Coakley's findings of exonerated to sustained for the allegation. City Manager Jim Ritzville declined the request. It was my understanding that the review board began operating in the first place as a result of previous allegations of police misconduct, mistrust several years ago, and would build community oversight of the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety. They would hear community complaints that are appealed after they have already been investigated by the Office of Professional Standards. The role would then be to advise and assist in improving public safety service policies and assist in building community trust, credibility, and confidence. I believe this board review did their job, and their transparency was a great opportunity for improving accountability and trust with KDPS. So where's the issue? The fact that despite their investigation recommendation to reverse the initial complaints, the city manager has the final authority to sustain or amend a response for the board of review. So I'm wondering, what's the purpose of the review board if one individual can overrule? How does the City Commission hold city manager accountable for his decisions on rulings? Is anybody reviewing whether the system in place for reviewing a complaint continues to just be another one of oppressive systems that lead to mistrust of KDPS and now you guys in the City Commission? Is there not a conflict of interest to have the city manager the final authority? I'd like you guys to consider moving the review board to either their decisions stand alone or they report to you as the City Commission. And we at Isaac, we love working with all of you guys. And we'd love to continue with that, encouraging you to take actions working towards racial justice and building a beloved community right here in Kalamazoo. And in conclusion, I ask then, as elective city commissioners, to reflect again on the spirit of why this review board was created in the first place. Review complaints, build trust with the community, and KDPS. And so what now needs to happen so this review board can actually fulfill its mission? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Hill, and I've been a resident of Kalamazoo for over 40 years. My purpose of being here tonight was for the fatherhood thing. I came with them brothers. I've been involved in the parenting field for over 28 years. I do consider myself a pillar in the community, a leader. I've dealt with a lot of adversities in Kalamazoo. Actually, I like Kalamazoo because it is a good home family raising city, I think. Coming from a big city in St. Louis, I've seen how the differences in raising children can be in a big city. I've enjoyed the work that I've done over the past 28 years. I've been in the parenting field, facilitated thousands of hours of classes, done quite a few presentations, family presentations. I've handed out a lot of certificates and things to fathers that have completed parenting classes. I have created myself several programs sitting in my house. I've done canvassing through quite a few of these neighborhoods. Patwood being one, Fox Ridge being another, Hilltop being one. The East Side has quite a few apartment complexes for lower income people. I'm telling you from my own experiences that parents need help. We all know that. It starts with the younger parents as well as the older. Right now, we're having more and more teen parents, so I feel like we could use teen parenting programs that will benefit our teens as they grow. It's fun when you get to work with people and they see that you really care. Enough people right now don't get that care. And that's why we're having problems with our teens. Evaluating and assessing people. I do that a lot. And I can tell you right now, there are a lot of parents who don't know how to come and open up and be with people that they need the help from. We're the ones that need to reach out and help them. Like I say, I do a lot of canvassing and I talk to people. I've also created a group therapy program for young teen parents. That's so needed right now with what's going on in the world. People are having real big issues. They need a place to come talk, share, and learn. My affirmation is to continue to do what I'm doing. If I have to go door to door by myself and do it, I'll do it. But I can use the help of a community and commissioners to find ways to help more and more young parents.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Good evening. I'm Toby Hannah Davies, and I'm co-chair of the Isaac and TRHT Housing Task Force, and I do live in the city. We want to assure you, city commissioners and city staff, that you can enforce our housing equity ordinance's ban on source of income discrimination. Other cities in Michigan also have housing equity ordinances and are enforcing their bans on source of income discrimination. Jackson, Ypsilanti, Ann Arbor, Grand Rapids for over 30 years. In Illinois, the governor recently signed a statewide source of income law protecting families with housing choice vouchers and other sources of legal income from discrimination. That makes Illinois the 20th state to pass some form of source of income protection. Also, just recently, Tampa became the 8th jurisdiction in Florida to ban SOI discrimination. It's happening all over the country. There's a nationwide movement to end source of income discrimination. We, Kalamazoo, have been one of the cities in Michigan that's taken leadership with our housing equity ordinance. And we, all of you, are needed to keep leading the way. Please be encouraged that you can enforce our housing equity ordinance ban on source of income discrimination. We will support you. I'd like everybody to raise their hand who's here from Isaac or TRHT, Truth, Racial Healing and Transformation, or otherwise supports our housing equity ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Shantae Stafford. I was asked to speak today because I'm a parent of 4 boys. I do live on the north side of Kalamazoo, and I'm just trying to figure out, like, as far as the police adultifying the kids, or just a different approach from as far as being in the community. He's a kid. They see him and they automatically think he adult. He gets adultified, and they should have a different approach on males, period, or just people, period. As soon as you get any contact with an officer, it's not friendly, it's not approachable, it's like harassment instead of healthy. My 14-year-old was shot last year on a porch, and as soon as he got to the hospital, they asked him what gang was he in. He has never been in trouble, he has never been in a gang, and that's not okay with me. I'm a mother of 4 boys, and I actually advocate for not only my 4 boys, but all the black men that are in our community, and they're not giving them a second chance. They're just like as soon as they, like, not all the officers, but most of the officers, as soon as you get in contact with them, they're, hey, what's the problem? They're not asking, like, he got, they just walked up to him, thinking he was a grown-up, didn't ask who he was with, if he was out, oh, you just got a curfew. He was with his 30-year-old uncle. How do he got a curfew? How can he get, if he's with an adult? So it's just, and then they didn't even give him a curfew, they gave him something for walking on the sidewalk. That's not acceptable to me as a parent. Like, not at all. Like, my son don't get in trouble. He's not, like, I just don't, like, and this is happening to more than just my kids. Like, they're just, as soon as they see a group of boys, like, I have a lot of boys at my house. I have 4 boys. So I'd rather my boys be at home. My son that got shot, he can't do sports like he used to because he can't get released because he has a bullet in his chest from just gun violence, which is ridiculous. He didn't partake into none of the violence. He just was sitting on the porch babysitting and got shot. And then after him getting shot, he's been nothing but discriminated. Like, I live on West North Street. The police officers will I have all of their names, I have the videos, all that. They will literally ride by and just look at my kids like, why is he a threat? Like, he shouldn't be a threat to them. And that's something that needs to be working in our community, and I'm definitely gonna be an advocate for that because I want my son to be men. I want them to grow up to be men and good black men. Like, that's what I want for my sons. If they got the community against them, everybody else against, and the officers that are supposed to be approachable when we need help, then who do they have? And that's just the problem with me. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Greetings, Commissioners, Mayor. My name is Bill Farmer. I do not live in the city of Kalamazoo, but all business that we do has everything to do with the city of Kalamazoo. I'm here representing the Southwest Michigan Democratic Socialists of America and wanted to review a packet of information that we sent to you in April. And number one, confirm that in fact you received that information, and it has to do with national legislation called the Medicare for All Acts. No, we're not sure if you received that information, but we submitted it to you. There is a resolution contained within that information with a thorough explanation of what the legislation provides. In a nutshell, it provides comprehensive health care to everybody in the United States from cradle to grave. It doesn't matter what position you have in society or the color of your skin, you will have health insurance. So I wanted to bring this up. Our group wanted to bring this up to you in a public setting. I have business cards here that I would like to distribute to you. It has my cell phone number. We would like to get into a discussion with you one-on-one, either via Zoom, telephone, or meeting. We are available to you. The issue that we present, that I'm speaking to here, permeates every issue that you've spoken to today, every issue. And often, even a movement or a decision of symbolism that you've taken here can lead in the future to some fundamental change that provides services to our community, which is very much needed. I want to thank you for your time and your good work. We had this program with the County Commission in 2020. They also had apprehensions, but we had thorough discussions. We had patience with each other, explained our positions, and it was successfully passed then. We look forward to that with you very soon. Hopefully, with your good graces, we can vote on this affirmatively at your June 21 meeting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Sir, you forgot your mask and your paper. Hi, my name is Tina McClin. I'm a lunch lady, and I'm around little kids, so I'm sorry I won't take my mask off.
Kids have lifted their masks at Kalamazoo Public Schools, so I have to protect them too. I am here again. My name is Tina McClinton. I live on Lake Street. I live in Kalamazoo. I am from Kalamazoo. I've owned my home for 38 years. I am here to ask again the same question I always ask. When are you going to fix the storm drains and the sewer issues in Southtown neighborhood? Because ever since you took away 12 acres of natural green space to build in 2017, which was KVCC growing field, we now flood 2 to 3 times every year. And ever since then, when we flood, your sewers back up. The storm drains in my neighborhood are so bad and old that they flood out the streets. That's what floods us. All the streets out in my neighborhood, which is Southtown neighborhood, when they flood the streets out, they back up the sewers, in the streets and in our homes. And you said you would put in a backflow. Well, I talked to 2 different plumbers who told me that that's not a good idea. You put in a backflow, the sewage is going to come up somewhere in your house. It would be like my neighbor where it came up in her shower, right there across from Upjohn Park, when the sewer completely failed. I don't want this to happen to me. I mean, I don't know why no one will address the problem of the flooding. My second question is, when are you going to accept our neighborhood, Southtown neighborhood, as the 23rd neighborhood of Kalamazoo? We have been asking and asking. We have a sign right on the corner across town in Burdick that says, "Welcome to Southtown neighborhood." But yet we're never allowed to speak about anything. We're never involved in anything. I've been asking for 6 years to fix these sewers and the storm drains. Every time you take away green space in my neighborhood, we flood more. You put your orange fence down, which covers the contaminated soil, which sinks down into the groundwater. Then you put dirt on top, which makes it higher than our homes. Where does water go? To us, to the lowest point. We're a poor neighborhood. I can't keep putting in furnaces and water heaters, let alone be trapped for 4 days. I work 3 jobs. I have to get out to get to those jobs. I have to pay for my own furnace and my own water heater. I have to get out of my neighborhood in boots up past my knees. And we're trapped for days. All I ask is to please fix this problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Faison. I actually live in Township, but I work for Isaac, and a lot of my work is in the city. I am an intern on the Housing Task Force. So with that being said, we all know that the Fair Housing Ordinance passed unanimously September 2020. It was created to help reduce racism in our community with the understanding that the Civil Rights Board would be enforcing it. Extensive planning and preparation, and this was under the leadership of the former Vice Mayor Patrice Griffin, as well as multiple organizations and partners, including Isaac, TRHT, the City of Kalamazoo, Fair Housing, MDCR. Implemented it to make sure that the Housing Equity Ordinance would meet all the necessary criteria to help reduce racism in our community. Discrimination, as well, that's based on income, as criminal records and other discrimination within our community. We didn't anticipate that it would be picking and choosing on what part of the ordinance that we would actually be enforcing. To not enforce the source of income and the voucher is really it directly impacts the BIPOC community. I actually went out and I did canvassing before this ordinance was passed. I hit targeted areas. I talked to individuals in the community that's either affected directly or indirectly. And they called in, they supported, they bombarded y'all with phone calls. And I know I had a commissioner call me back like, why is your number showing up on mine? Because if they didn't have a phone, guess what? You can use mine to call your commissioner. And so, but the community supports this because it definitely helps to get us from racism and have inclusiveness. So, as I said, they strongly supported it. Every part of the ordinance needs to be enforced, source of income included. As you've heard, there are other states that are supporting this, so it can be supported. That's why a lot of work was done to make sure that all parts of this ordinance would be supported. Choosing not to support this part of the ordinance is really just another form of systemic racism. Everybody deserves fair housing. And unfortunately, like I said, it's going to affect our BIPOC community if this part of the ordinance is not enforced. So once again, it is very important that we enforce the vouchers as a source of income. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Well, hi, board. My name is Sadie Paul. I didn't really premeditate exactly on what I was going to say, but according to all the prophecies, hi, I'm mom. But I have court coming up for trespassing on Radisson's property when it was cold, being in the parking garage. But I am an internally displaced person. That means homeless, but the UN calls us internally displaced. I'm not homeless. After all, I have the inheritance of heaven. So, but what's going on right now, the powers that hold, I can barely speak now that I look at you directly. Well, there's a lot to say, but I'm going to lay out all the prophecies then, but of course I'm going to plead innocent because I cannot trespass on what is mine, but I'll start laying out the prophecies in the courts then. But let's get just to some of the basic things. One, I am appalled at the cost that has been approved by the city for many things. $178,000? The people could have built them, the playgrounds. It could have been a community thing, but that doesn't matter in this very moment. Oh, but I will say, there's been a lot. I've been trying to get help for a while. Don Cooney, I'm going to call you out. I was in your office last year homeless. Literally, because I've been to your office before saying I'm a visionary savant. I have brain charts that prove it. I'm disabled with words, but I have a plan. Superior executive functioning, superior perceptual reasoning, connecting abstract pieces and thinking outside the box. And you said, take care of yourself, we need you, and sent me out your office. And then also, anyways, because I'm going to be all over, I'm ADD and I stopped just taking my medicine recently. But it's fine, because if I had a team, I could direct everyone just fine. But the transit station needs updated plumbing, for one, like ASAP. It's ridiculous that things are not automatic when it was closed down. How during a pandemic did the city not think to update the plumbing? I'm just confused now. Oh yeah, let's see what else. Oh, the Portland Loo needs hand sanitizer. One of the ambassadors, Rico, said that he requested it from the city a month ago. There's still no hand sanitizer in that Portland Loo. Where all the homeless people use the restroom. Let's see. Oh yeah, I already have tons of programs. My plan for the city was called the Kazoo Experiment because it was going to be an experiment after all to see if we could pull the people together. But we were going to run it like a scientific experiment. But I do have a plan for it. But one of those things that we need to do now is the Aware House. I need funding to set up a homeless center that actually works, not an extortionist gospel mission that uses my husband's name in vain. Blasphemy, after all. Let's see. Oh yeah, Solidarity Station. Oh, we're running out of time. I already had a community center set up. I called Stryker Johnson Foundation, spent hours on the phone saying I am disabled with language. I need somebody to work with me, inclusionary. But that didn't work either. Oh yeah, $2.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Good evening to our mayor, vice mayor, commissioners, and staff. My name is Charlay Davis, and I am the executive director of Isaac. I am a proud member of GVI, brought to Kalamazoo by Isaac, a proud member of the Gun Violence Prevention Network, and a proud member of Blocks Club. Thank you to Commissioner Hoffman and to Commissioner Juarez for their attendance at the It's a Trap event organized by Ed Genesis, an event that talked about the social determinants of health and trauma and how that can lead to community violence, as well as systemic traps that need to be dismantled. A recording will be available soon, and we encourage each and every one of you all to watch and to learn from all of the panelists, their expertise, and their lived experiences. There are many facets of gun violence, yet I want to discuss community violence that's impacting us locally. I would like to ask that our leaders in the city review and lean into the resolution that you all passed last year, written by County Commissioner Tammy Ray and Gwendolyn Hooker. The city and the county declared gun violence a public health concern, and now we implore all of our leaders to truly listen and to learn and to understand what that really means. It's not enough for us as a city just to say those words, but we have to lean into those words and we have to live those words. Right now, today, we have valuable community members who are traumatized and continuously triggered by gun violence. We have valuable community members who don't feel safe in their homes and they need a safe place to live. We have valuable community members feeling trapped by societal barriers and obstacles. And we owe it to ourselves to be thoughtful and inclusive and careful so that more harm is not done. As a community, as a village, we need resources in all of our impacted neighborhoods, not just one impacted neighborhood, but all of them. We want this funding and resources to go to the foundations who distribute money. That's their expertise, that's their role in our community, and they work to do so with an equity and anti-racist lens. Thank you for all who have been listening deeply to us as community members. Deep listening is an action word, and I have to be honest, anything else besides deep listening feels like silencing. And if that's hard to hear, I would say please imagine how it feels by those doing the work who might be politely silenced or not seen as experts with you all. This work is not easy, it is not always comfortable, and we are not always going to agree, but it is vital, and we're in it together. And lastly, there are a number of strategies and organizations who are working to stop the violence. We have joined in word and deed. We are not competing. We are looking out for each other as family, and we are working towards this solution together.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, my name is Andrew Chaponda. I stay in Kalamazoo Township, but I work in the city of Kalamazoo. I rise today to join my colleagues from Isaac and the community to oppose the decision by the city attorney not to go forward and enforce the provisions as outlined in the Housing Equity Ordinance. I wanted to remind the commissioners again, some of you were here last time when we went through this process. It was a long process, it was an involved process, it was a consultative process, and Attorney Robinson, on several occasions, took the liberty to go through all the versions of the ordinance until it was presented to this chamber. I also want to remind you again what is going to be lost if we do not follow through with enforcing of this very important ordinance. On the 9th of May, there was a meeting of the committee that is tasked with enforcing the Civil Rights Committee. Attorney Robinson said things that not only shocked some of us, but we could not believe that he's proposing to do away with the source of income to even include checks from churches, checks from government agencies, and checks even from your brother. He said any other check that is given by third party will be covered by this refusal. So I want to appeal to you again, our commissioners. Kalamazoo just got the benefit of 1,000 vouchers that are going to be introduced to the community from our voucher agency. And where do you want the people with those vouchers to go and stay if we are going to deny them the opportunity to use these vouchers where they're supposed to be? So we are appealing on behalf of this community and everybody else involved with the housing in Kalamazoo that please do not do away with this ordinance. There are so many other cities and states in this country that have done this. We want from the attorney to tell us what else we can do to make it possible. I think there are other ideas out there that he can tell us that I want you as community to do A, B, C, and D so that this ordinance can be enforced. So I think the community is ready for that action, and we want also to invite the attorney to be a partner in this journey to make sure that this ordinance is enforced in full. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hello, Commissioners, Mayor Anderson, Vice Mayor Cooney. My name is Gwendolyn Hooker. I am the Director of Helping Other People Exceed Hope Through Navigation. And of course, you all know the co-founder of JABS, Justice Against Bullying at School. I'm here today to bring to you guys' attention some folks who may not be aware because they weren't on the commission last year when the gun violence resolution was voted on unanimously and passed by the City Commission. I'm saying this because as the co-author of this resolution, a Black impacted woman, I think it's very important to remind you all of what you folks voted on, what you agreed to, and to bring it back into focus of why we specifically wrote the resolution the way that we did, and why we are imploring you to continue to uphold the decision that you made by enforcing it as written. The proclamation it says a lot of things. It speaks to the social determinants of health. It talks about the mental health, and it talks about resiliency and support services for people directly impacted by gun violence. And it specifically states in that document how we were proposing that money be allocated specifically to grassroots organizations that were doing gun violence work. So in saying that, we, Commissioner Tammy Ray and myself, are very, very committed to the $1 million that was allocated by the city and from the county to be actually distributed to organizations through the foundations to actually get to the organizations that have been doing the work. There should not be an opportunity for anyone to cut the line just because there's specific money available. Many of the collaborators and partners that we have been working with have been doing this work long before gun violence became a household name, pre-pandemic. We did that work blood, sweat, and tears, without money, without a second thought, because we believed in our communities and we wanted to save and impact people's lives that were being directly impacted by gun violence. So I think what I'm asking and bringing to your attention, and I know that some things have been shuffled around in the agenda, but I really want to bring you all's attention to the actual resolution and to understand that everything in the resolution that has already been passed is actually outlined what you all agreed to do. And I guess I just get
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Good evening, Commissioner Decker, Commissioner Hoffman, Commissioner Cooney, Mayor Anderson, Commissioner Hess, Commissioner Pradle, and Commissioner Juarez. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. I want to encourage all of you to reach out to your community gardens and get involved. I think it's good for your mental health. I think it's good for something to do. I think it's good for your bellies and your health and lots of other reasons. But I do want to send out a big appreciation for Commissioner Ray and Gwendolyn Hooker for writing that gun violence thing. So thank you for doing that. I'm going to get out there and canvass for that this summer. And ranked choice voting, I hope everybody's supporting that. I was talking to some people, I probably shouldn't even say that. I was talking to some people about something else today too, the parks. Hope to see Commissioner Juarez at the parks meeting tomorrow. But I'm yearning for like what to look for. I just went and rode my bike to the beach this last weekend and a couple weekends before that too, and it was great. And when you get to Bloomingdale, they have a little bike station with a bike pump, and my front tire was kind of low, and it was kind of annoying. Every time I went to a sidewalk, I was afraid I was going to get a flat tire because the tire presses up against the rim, and I just got a flat tire a couple weeks ago, so I've been thinking about that. Almost like trauma, but not even close. And I filled up my tire, and then the rest of the ride was so much more joyful. And then somebody else invited me out to Portage, to the Celery Flats, and they have like automatic air compressor bike pumps. You don't even have to work. You just push it in and it fills it up. And they have one all along the trail. They have stops all along the way, and they have restrooms. And they have restrooms going out to South Haven. Those are more like a hole in the ground. But I don't know if that's something that's worth pushing for here in Kalamazoo. Like maybe out on the KRVT trail. I don't know. Or another thing I've been trying to push for is like an ice rink. I grew up in Grand Rapids, and they have Rosa Parks circle with an ice rink. It's really nice. And then I went to Ann Arbor to visit one of the county commissioners over there, and they have a really nice ice rink in Lansing and Portage. But I don't know if that's what this community wants. So if anybody has any feedback, I'd appreciate it. Thanks. Have a great day.
Thank you. Next, please.
Jeff Messer, city resident. Ooh, the new microphone is much shorter. We have a new sound system tonight, everybody, if you didn't see earlier in the meeting. Jeff Messer, city resident. As you can see from my shirt, I am a volunteer for Rank My Vote. During the last 2 city commission meetings, I've talked about our petition campaign to put a ranked choice voting question on the ballot in the city of Kalamazoo this November. I thought the commission, media, and public might like an update on how it is going. I had hoped to tell you tonight that we were at 1,000 signatures and 1/3 of the way towards our goal of 3,000 by the end of July. Unfortunately, our campaign has suffered a minor setback. When I arrived at the Bank Street Farmers Market on the morning of Saturday, May 28, I was informed that our previous petition sheets were invalid, meaning all signatures on those sheets won't count. For me, that was a loss of 2 weeks of work and 100 signatures. I'm still unclear on what the problem was, but our new petition sheets have the charter amendment language physically attached to the petitions in one giant piece of paper. The old petition sheets had the charter amendment language on separate sheets of paper right underneath the petitions. That means everyone who signed their petitions prior to Saturday, May 28, that's the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend, needs to resign. That includes Commissioner Juarez, but not Commissioner Pradel or Dr. Cooney. We are asking everyone who needs to resign to please meet us at the Bank Street Farmers Market every Saturday morning from 8 a.m. to noon. Otherwise, our campaign is going well. We collected a lot of signatures on Friday and Saturday at Kalamazoo Pride. Last night, we held the first of our weekly Sunday evening power canvases in the 49008 zip code portion of the Vine neighborhood. Next Sunday evening, we are thinking of either doing Vine again or maybe Winchell or Oakwood. We are still seeking more volunteers, whether city residents or not. Anyone who wants to volunteer should go to our website at rankmyvote.org and click the blue volunteer button. Again, that website address is rankmyvote.org, where MI is the postal abbreviation for Michigan. For those of you who are still unfamiliar with ranked choice voting, please go to our website at rankmyvote.org. I further invite you to read the instant runoff voting and ranked choice voting in the United States articles on Wikipedia. Do all the research you want. When you are assured that ranked choice voting is an improvement upon the current plurality voting system, please come visit us at the Bank Street Farmers Market every Saturday morning from 8 a.m. to noon to sign our petition. Thank you, and I'm going to give Clerk Borling a copy of my remarks to include with the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the chambers this evening that'd like to take advantage of their opportunity for public comment? See no one. Deputy City Manager Chamberlain, do we have anyone who's called in during public comments?
We'll go ahead and check. Caller ending in 7024, go ahead with the City Commission.
Hi, my name is Kay. I'm calling because I'm disappointed in what is a lack of commitment from the City Commission towards addressing the violent cycle of evictions that the Houseless community faces. Once again, the Kalamazoo Community Foundation paid for 2 weeks stay for the Houseless community, but it is not less than for people to get on their feet, especially Friday, KDPS knocks on their doors, but where will they go? Nonprofit, who, when faced with the reality of do call on KDPS because and especially not the city. I had a meeting. I recommend people watch it on YouTube. And I have about the housing ordinance and the city attorney Robbins not for helping create fair housing. I encourage the City Commission to have the discussion that the Civil Rights Board had about what they haven't been able to accomplish. And I wholeheartedly believe that the board to create change. But it is clearly the city attorney, city ordinances, and city management for preventing ordinances and changes to benefit and Section 8 voucher holders. City Commissioner Stephanie Hoffman's words were really spot on during the civil rights. Change will be uncomfortable, but we have to persevere. City Manager and City Attorney need to put the charges against activists who are defending the City Commissioners to really address this issue, especially with the KDPS review and
Is that the end of your comments, ma'am? Okay. Caller ending in 5250, go ahead with the Kalamazoo City Commission. Hi, go ahead. You're live with the City Commission.
Okay, hello.
Yes,
Can
go
you
ahead.
guys hear me? Okay, thank you. Hi, again, this is Remy Harrington. I attended last week's meeting, and I plan on attending the next one in the next couple of weeks. I logged on to see what the sustainability presentation was going to be talking about. And I also participated in the Eco-Adapt Climate Change Adaptation Workshop that Kalamazoo, the city of Kalamazoo, was selected to participate in. It was a National Science Foundation grant that 7 cities in the United States were selected to participate in. And so I was able to contribute my thoughts to our position on our climate change adaptation plan. And so I just want to say that as the administrator and co-founder of the Zoo City Farm and Food Network, a Black woman-led urban agriculture initiative, I feel ignored, and I still did not hear very much about environmental racism and the varying layers of how communities of color and communities that have been divested from financially are going to be able to be compensated for in the context of this sustainability plan. I hear very, which we commonly hear, just perfunctory statements, over talking people, people come up with their concerns about mirroring things, and we do everything we can to discredit them, ignore them. It's just embarrassing, honestly. But Commissioner Cooney, what he said, when he reiterated the question about us needing a coordinator for this particular initiative, I just wanted to offer that you don't have to do so much work. If the city of Kalamazoo does not have so much capacity to implement these high and mighty themes of change and, what you say you're going to do that we unfortunately have not been able to materialize, then why can't we just have an infrastructure that supports the people that are doing these initiatives already? We're not the only people that have been doing urban farming. There have been so many people of color before me, probably after me, that have been doing this in their homes, in raised beds. People have been doing this forever. And if we just had infrastructure, a municipal infrastructure that supported people's existing initiatives, that would be even better. But I don't know. You want wins, you guys want control, you want credit, and it's shameful. And I just think that we should do better in that way. I think that also I would like to see a better response to the constituency that have these thematic expressions of urgency, because I don't like the way that they're treated. I know how it feels to be discredited, and
Hi, caller ending in 2324. Go ahead with the City Commission.
Hi, this is.
Hi, go ahead. You're live with the City Commission.
Thank you. Hi, this is Ellen Nelson. I'm a resident of Kalamazoo, and I'm just calling to voice my support for the source of income protections in the Housing Equity Ordinance. Over the years, and even recently, I've come across people in my own neighborhood who cannot find housing simply because they pay with a voucher. The housing is really tight right now, and these people need places to live. Denying people housing based solely on the way in which they pay is discrimination, plain and simple. If you believe that housing is a fundamental human right and that everyone truly deserves a chance to call somewhere home, you will do the right thing and stand with the enforcement of the source of income protections in the Housing Equity Ordinance, like other states and counties successfully do. The city attorney needs to enforce the law that was voted on unanimously. Otherwise, lots of people will needlessly suffer. I believe Kalamazoo can stand up for equity, and I hope I'm right. Thank you very much.
Caller ending in 4842. Go ahead. You're with the City Commission.
My name is Miss Grisham. I want to know why you all are ignoring the death of my son at the hands of the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety. I want to know why you would call a SWAT team out to somebody who's holding a gun to their own head, pleading for them not to be surrounded by police dogs, the SWAT team, the state troopers. Tell me why y'all refuse to give me any publicity on the death of my son. Tell me why the records department is trying to overcharge me and tell me to figure out who pushed the bullet through my son's head. Tell me why you all ignored all my emails, all my phone calls. Tell me why am I being held at bay with passivity because you all don't want to answer the questions for the murderers that's in that department. Tell me why this is not important, but what you're talking about around that table is more important than these black men getting murdered by these Klan members that's in those departments. Tell me, tell us, tell the world. My son, Liddell Ramey Grisham, did not shoot himself. Tell him that he was sniped by the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety. Tell me why I'm using God's answers. Tell me why I buy a FOIA request and it shows footage of cameras pointed to the back seat of the car in the police car as opposed to what I'm requesting. Y'all charged me $85 after you tried to charge me $1,400, after y'all told me 6 officers only showed up, after y'all told me there was a negotiator, after you claim to have watched those videos 6 months ago and I just get them 2-3 weeks ago. Tell me why y'all are covering up the death of my child who was only 23, who was a good kid. Yes, he probably suffered some mental anguish, but you don't do this shit to people. You don't get to know it. Y'all don't get my name. You don't get to. Give me some answers. Open your mouth. I'm listening. I'm listening.
Yes, your comments are live.
I want you to reply to me. Lie. Why would you call a SWAT team to somebody in distress? What police are? Tell me. Oh, you're mute. But let me let you know right now, I'm not giving up this fight. That was my child that you took from me. And I pray and hope to God that karma works for each and every last one of you.
Caller ending in 8023, go ahead with the Kalamazoo City Commission.
Yes, my name is Dick Schultz, and I live in zip code 49009. But I do a lot of work with downtown organizations like Isaac and First United Methodist Church on Bronson Park. And as a member of Isaac's Leadership Board and Anti-Racist Task Force, I want to express Isaac's excitement about our continued joint work to build a culture of trust and legitimacy between the community and law enforcement. I look forward to your updates on how this implementation plan is going. A news release came out late in September of 2021 documenting that 98 City of Kalamazoo staff members completed ERASE's Introduction to Systemic Racism training. It also stated that the training would continue to be offered to all city employees in 2021 and beyond. And I'd like to hear more about what is happening in 2022 with this training. The article also stated that additional training opportunities would be developed based on the results of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Assessment that Ms. Dora Bonner spoke so eloquently about not long ago. I'd like to know and to hear more about the continuing impact, what that impact has been of that training, as difficult as it is to measure, of these ongoing opportunities. And I also want to thank you all for the work that you do to make Kalamazoo a better place for everyone. Thank you.
Caller ending in 9643, go ahead, you're live with the commission. Hi, caller, go ahead, you're live with the commission.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Hello, my name is Ashante Collins. I'm a resident in the city of Kalamazoo. I want to start off by saying that I think it's very inequitable not to have recording lines for public comment. This limits the community's ability to be able to interact with their public officials that they have elected. It takes nothing away from you to provide this accommodation for the community that elected you to your seat. Also today, I wanted to address the practices of the City Commission dealing with racism, equity, and inclusion. For the members of this community, we have had to demand equity where it should have been given. For far too long, community members have had to ask their public officials not to stand by racist and exclusive laws and standards that have harmed the city, especially those within the BIPOC community. Tonight, my ask to this Board of Commissioners is that after the resignation of your DEI coordinator, who you chose to do a report to see how diverse, equitable, and inclusive your city staff is, and after receiving a report from your coordinator that upholds what the community has known for years, that this city needs more equitable practices, more inclusivity, and more diversity amongst its own, I ask, where does it start? When does it happen? When do you fix the system within City Hall's walls, and then fix the city that you are elected to serve? When does your community get to feel as if their voices are not only heard, but also that their voices matter? The community appreciates Elder Bonner's acknowledgement and her voice when she broadcasted light on how the city doesn't seem to be ready and how this is the fourth report and nothing has still been done. We appreciate the honesty. So we want to know, who will you get to replace Elder Bonner? Who will you get? What we want you to do is strive to hire someone who will make change happen to where the next report will show improvement. How will you fix these issues that have been addressed in the DEI report? And when will you fix the issues in the report and actually tell this community how we will be pushing forward? How will you ensure that you are hiring someone who will bring about change? How will you be transparent to the community with this process? And along the way, how will the community be able to see the changes that are happening in-house And also, will the community have the ability to be involved in the hiring of the next DEI director? This community wants better, and also this community deserves better. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that was the last call.
Thank you very much for all your work on this, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain. And I want to thank everyone who either came to the chambers tonight or called in for your effort and your commitment to providing public comments. Thank you. I misspoke earlier. We actually don't have any items under F, the public hearing. So next is our consent agenda tonight. Manager Ritzma.
The following items are presented for approval. First is the approval of a contract supplemental with Rathco Safety and Supply Incorporated for traffic control rental and placement in the amount of $124,000. Next is approve a contract with Whiteman for engineering services extending the hydraulic model of sanitary system interceptors, trunk lines, and watersheds, Smart Sewer Shed Phase 2 in the amount of $144,100. Next is the approval of a contract with Tree Works Incorporated for the removal of designated hazardous trees throughout the city and its cemeteries as outlined in the hazardous tree removal project in the amount of $156,300. Next is the approval of a one-year contract extension with Kalamazoo Oil Incorporated for biodiesel fuel for an amount not to exceed $250,000. Next is the approval of a 3-month contract with Alexander Chemical Corporation for the purchase of 12.5% sodium hypochlorite in the amount of $257,075. Next is the approval of a contract supplemental and new purchase order with SWT Excavating Incorporated for the Random Material Inventory Project in the amount of $1,719,566.15. Next is the approval of a construction contract supplemental and change order with Davis Construction Incorporated for the procurement of the pre-engineered metal building for the Kalamazoo Water Reclamation Plant's tertiary disc filtration process facility in the amount of $1,805,988.99. Next is the approval of a one-year contract with Waste Management for loading, hauling, and disposal of belt press solids in the amount of $8,924,018, and approval of a budget adjustment in the amount of $2,289,010 to cover the contract amount. Next is the approval of a memorandum of understanding with Kalamazoo Regional Education Service Agency and the Youth Opportunities Unlimited for the Summer Youth Employment and Training Program in the amount of $825,000. Next is the approval of 2021 and 2022 budget amendments and acceptance of informational reporting on capital project carry-forwards and grant acceptances. Next is the acceptance of an Indian Community Violence Grant in the amount of $50,000 from the State of Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and approval of the allocation of these funds to Urban Alliance and Western Michigan University. Next is the approval of a request from Randy Martinez on behalf of Party Sparks Incorporated to publicly display fireworks indoors at the Wings Event Center at 3600 Van Rick Drive on June 17, 2022, with an alternate date of June 18, 2022. Next is the approval of the mayor's appointment of Matt Hollander to the Downtown Development Authority and Downtown Economic Growth Authority boards of directors for concurrent terms expiring on March 31, 2024. And next we have the following appointments and reappointments to the Building Board of Appeals. The reappointment of Benjamin Bierlein for a term expiring on March 31, 2025. Jillian Hocking for a term expiring on March 31, 2025. Ryan Long for a term expiring on March 31, 2024. Matthew Maycroft for a term expiring on March 31, 2024. And Andrew Valenti for a term expiring on March 31, 2025. Next is the approval of the appointments of Jeff Chamberlain, Deputy City Manager, and Steve Vicenzi, Management Services Director and CFO, to the Utility Policy Committee as city alternate members. And finally, approval of the purchase of 827 and 833 Walter Street from Kalamazoo County Mental Health Authority, doing business as Integrated Services of Kalamazoo, for a purchase price of $10,700.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. So Commissioners, the requested action is a motion to approve items 1 through 3, 5 through 10, 12, and 14 through 19, and authorize the city manager to sign all related documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Cooney. Is there support? I'm sorry, did I miss something in my description?
Support.
Okay, supported. Yeah, Commissioner Hess.
On our agenda, it says on item 19, it's to be postponed until June 21st. Okay, just wanted that to be clear.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Hess. So motion is made and supported. Clerk Boyling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, however, I am abstaining on item 19 as I work for Integrated Services of Kalamazoo.
And Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The items on the consent agenda are approved. Manager Ritzma, regular agenda.
Item H1 is approval of an agreement with the Kalamazoo Youth Development Network to be the sub-recipient under the state and local fiscal recovery funds in the amount of $1 million.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Is there a staff report on this item?
We have Meg Blinkevich in the audience and our Parks and Recreation Director, if there are any questions to be asked. I can give a little brief background on this one.
That'd be great, sure.
So back in April, the City Commission approved the $1 million allocation to KidNet for youth summer programs. And this is the actual agreement coming back to the City Commission for the $1 million that will go out by KidNet to the recipients that were selected through their RFP process. So this is the last step in the process of getting that money out to the community.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Any questions, Commissioners, on this item? Commissioner Hess.
Sure, thank you. I'd like to ask Meg if you could give us an update on how many groups and entities will be involved and be receiving funding from the city. And while you're coming up, I'd love to thank you for your work and your wisdom and your experience that you've put into this initiative. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Good evening. We received 39 applications and we've selected 31. The total was 1.5 million and we have 875,000 to award. The first time that the RFP went out, we received 58 applications at 2.1 million. We received feedback that this process was time-consuming and frustrating, and so that explained the reduction from 58 to 39 received.
And so 39 will be funded fully or partially?
31 will
31.
be funded.
Okay.
Yep, some fully, some partially.
Thank you.
Yep.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yeah, Meg, just thank you so much for leading this. And I know how much work went into this, and I think it's such a wonderful initiative for the city. And I guess we're kicking this off on Friday at 3 o'clock. Is that what's happening at Uptown Park?
That's the city's summer kickoff. We kicked off summer Saturday, actually, with training that included some of the selected organizations, and we're training all this week. And we actually kick off summer in January officially.
Okay, so when will we see what's funded and everything?
Well, we had to wait until tonight We don't have the money. And so we're ready to go once this last step is approved. And so we have the sub-recipient agreements that we have yet to see the template for. So once we get those tomorrow, we're ready and waiting. And so this week we'll be able to get the final documents out and get the show on the road with everyone.
Good, thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes, it was mentioned that, these are, it was mentioned that you had 50-something people who applied, and then there's a portion of those individuals who were kind of saying the process was too long. That portion of individuals who didn't reapply, were those more like grassroots, smaller organizations? Were they bigger organizations or organizations that have been established for fairly quite some time and said, no, we'd rather not? Or kind of where's the kind of, who dropped out, who didn't?
There were some larger organizations that dropped out. There were programs that dropped out because of the requirement that you had to be a nonprofit or come in under a fiscal agent. So it ran the continuum. And we will include in our report that the City Commission gets in October, we will include a comprehensive and detailed documentation of the pre-award process. And so we will be able to answer all of your questions with quantitative and qualitative feedback.
Okay, I know that a recommendation have come from the dais concerning those organizations who didn't have a nonprofit status or couldn't administratively undergo that capacity. What happened there?
So we worked with them so they could come in with a fiscal agent, and we had organizations stepped up to say we'll serve as a fiduciary, and we've been working diligently to make these partnerships happen.
Thank you, Meg. Other questions? Commissioner Bradel.
Meg, thank you so much for being here so late tonight and all your work. It is truly a heavy lift, and you're taking on an enormous burden with Director McBury as well. And so I thank you so much for all you're doing and your team's doing. I was just curious about, so you mentioned that the 31 were awarded, that 39 actually applied. There was $1.5 million worth of asks, but obviously $875,000 actually awarded. In terms of that disparity, was that because some of those entities had some items that they weren't able to qualify? Was it just that the amount was, the asks were so great that you kind of had to score them to prioritize? Kind of how did that happen?
So how did we decide on the 31? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had a and so we scored according to that rubric. Yep.
Do you, based on that disparity between the asks and what was awarded, are there any programs or initiatives or anything that you're particularly concerned that won't come to fruition this summer?
No, I mean, the original, when we went out originally, it was 2.1 million. So I think the 2.1 million to the 1.5 demonstrates the need for summer programming. We've known that, and I think now we've got even more data around the need from very small organizations or programs, and then to larger organizations as well.
Great, thank you so much.
Yep.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Do you know offhand, Meg, my understanding is 39 were approved. Is that right?
39 were received
Oh,
through
and 31
the second
were
process. Yeah,
Okay.
and 30, we've selected 31 from the 30.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions at this time? Commissioner Juarez.
The time between the ones you got approved, I mean, the ones that filled out the initial applications, the 50-something, what was the time between that moment and then the 39 that reapplied? What was how much time did they have?
On the second go, I think it was like 10 days. Yeah, including the Memorial weekend.
Do you feel that maybe that timing wasn't sufficient enough, or do you feel like that was part of it for people to reapply?
Yeah, the timing, the fact that organizations have to have a SAMS number, and the federal government, that system crashes daily, and they're way behind with all the ARPA funds that are out there, and it's a requirement now that you have to have this SAM ID. Their system crashes, programs, organizations were like, it's too much, it's not worth it. We have learned a lot about all the barriers with the federal government. It's been quite a learning curve for us, and that will all be part of that report that we submit to you, that as a city, you all receive a lot of federal funding, and with your DEI work, I really recommend and encourage you to lean into how do you operate equitably and receive federal funds.
That's for another discussion, huh?
Yes.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yeah, Meg, one of the concerns we had was to try to get young people who don't usually participate in these things to get in. Do we have a plan for that, or do we need to do more on that? How do we stand on that?
There are organizations that have been operating through volunteers that for the first time will have substantial funding through this. There are, I would say, 4 or 5 that fall into that category. But again, I'm going to go back to first go round, $2.1 million, y'all, $2.1 million. And we have 875. And so there's a huge need out there, right? And you have more money. You know, the 3 of you who are on the Youth Development Subcommittee, Phase 2 is coming up, and we can provide you all the data. And so I would encourage you to use that as you go into Phase 2 to plan for those 3 years, after school and then summer for the next 3 years. Yeah.
Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. Meg, thank you for all the work you've done, and thank you, Commissioner Juarez, for bringing up the question regarding organizations or programs that did not have that nonprofit status. So I appreciate you working with them and partnering with someone that has that status so they were able to get the fundings that they need. So thank you.
You're welcome. And just a shout out to our sector, out of school time sector. There's so much trust and love in our sector. I don't know another sector so giving, so committed to each other, so non-competitive, to have folks say, we've got your back, no matter what you need, we're gonna make this work. And so, yeah, the out-of-school time youth development sector is, I think, it stands alone in this community for lack of competition and always working together on behalf of young people.
Thank you for all your efforts. Seeing no other questions, is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on this item? It's item H1. Please come to the podium, give us your name and whether you live in the city. Speakers will each have 3 minutes for their comments.
Get up here fast enough. My name is Gwendolyn Hooker. So I feel like there was a disconnect somewhere, because the last time we were here, y'all passed a resolution or something to say that there was too many barriers for grassroots organizations to access the funding. And y'all voted to not for it to have a nonprofit, not to have this, not to have that. So I'm not sure what happened, because I didn't get the memo about another process, like people had to reapply again with different requirement. Like, this is a great example of inequity, because if you're not assimilating information to organizations from the grassroots up, then there's people that are on the ground doing the work that don't have any idea of what's going on. So for me, as a person that has been doing this work for like 20 years, it's really frustrating for me to have not known anything about a change of plans. Like, I didn't know anything about a new application, a new anything, so it seems like as I'm getting text messages, something happened, y'all hired a consultant to come in and tell y'all how to do the money, and then you sent out another RFP after people had already applied from the first RFP, and then some people didn't get the memo that there was a new process, and now, which is another reason why everybody didn't reapply, because there's too many barriers to actually access the funding. So I'm saying all of this to say that if you don't have a process that's inclusive, where organizations that have been doing work with youth for a very long time and they're not getting the information, there's probably a lot more organizations that didn't get the memo. Because I didn't get the memo, and I'm a cohort member, and I do youth development. So I don't know what happened, but I think that they should get the money, but I think that we definitely have to work on how we're going to streamline a process that's equitable and fair for everybody, not just people that somebody's picking without any, like, who's on the mailing list? Why are some organizations not even aware that there was another RFP and another grant process? It's just very frustrating to me. And either way, I mean, we're going to get the work done regardless, with or without money, but there other organizations don't have that tenacity to be able to do that.
Thank you. Anyone else want to comment on this item?
I just want to get up here and kind of echo what Gwendolyn was saying. I like to think that I'm kind of involved in things that go on in this community. I try to be aware of things, and I had no idea there was a public participation plan until June 2nd. I ran an entire campaign for transparency. I think that would have been brought up. And it kind of echoes with what she's talking about. I know that Don Cooney and Commissioner Hoffman came out to the Northside Community Association, and the biggest resounding thing that people brought up over and over and over again through all their different stories was poor communication. But I do want to lift up, the new website is really great. I like the calendar, how you can like see what's going on and kind of zoom out. And it's not just like a list of words, but there's like, you can see the days and how they flow together, and it's easy to track. That's really nice. I would request that you put some pictures up, but I do like I do want to support what Gwendolyn is saying about how the communication could be a little better. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on this item? Seeing no more comments, the recommended action is a motion to approve the agreement. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Cooney.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Hess. Discussion. Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. So for the KidNet, I do remember it being that we were extending it. I do remember that we were extending it for a certain amount of time. And I guess I'm just also inquiring on, as I guess, how the information was sent out for the next round. Was that through email, or was it through the mailing? Or I guess I'm wondering how, once you decided to go another 10 days, how that information was communicated.
Meg, are you still here? There we go.
So it wasn't our decision. none of this has been our decision, just stated to us by the city and a consultant from Georgia. And we were told that our request for proposal had to become a notice of funds available. And so that notice went out to all 58 organizations that applied. We put it on our website. I think the city put it on their website. We communicated it to all 58. We have so many emails that went out. Hundreds of emails went out. We had a webinar on how to apply the second time around. Everyone was notified about that. We sent the NOFA out multiple times, multiple follow-up emails. So it was the same process plus some from the original process. And in order to get the funds out for summer, that's where that 10-day window came out, because this is for summer funding, and we're already a little late now, and it's still feasible for organizations to receive the funds. Yep.
Thank you, Meg. Other discussion? Commissioner Juarez?
Yeah, so Gwen, you said you didn't receive a second email for the second round. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I'm kind of offended because when you say that everybody received the...
Can you come up to the mic?
This is what we're not going to do, because I'm not with the games and I said what I said because that's what happened. And so you cannot sit here and basically, because it sounds like when someone else comes up and says, no, we sent it out to everybody, that means that the person that came up here and said that, no, I didn't get it, that means that somebody's got to be lying.
So that's why I want your voice to echo. That's why I want your voice to echo.
So the fact of the matter is, I did apply the first time, and also the fact of the matter is that I did not get any type of information about a webinar, about a NOFA, about anything to either one of the emails, Jabs for Justice or Gwen Crash Case. Did I get an email notifying me that there was another process in play? So I don't have any reason to make this shit up. Like, I got other things to do. So the point that I'm making, because we're going to get funded regardless. That money won't make or break us, because the people and the work that we do, we're going to get funded. The problem is that there's other people that are actually doing real transformative work on the ground that aren't going to get funded, that actually need money to do the work that y'all are saying that y'all trying to do. Because if you're trying to reach a targeted population that nobody can reach, you're saying that nobody has been able to reach these people. The organizations that have been doing this work all this time haven't been able to reach the people that you're trying to reach, which means you need new people to be able to reach those people. So to still exclude the organizations or the grassroots people that are doing the work to reach the people that you're trying to reach is kind of hypocritical. So I don't know about the numbers of the people that applied and all of that, because I don't have the information, but I know me personally, as well as one other organization that I know for a fact applied the first time and did not get any notification about any other second process that was in play. That's just what happened. I'm not the person that's saying I don't think that KidNet should get the money. I am the person that's saying that when the city of Kalamazoo gets money from a federal source, there has to be some equitable approach to delivering funding to organizations that are on the ground. We've done this before. During COVID, y'all figured it out. Everybody was trying to get money on the ground to do the work, and all of these barriers and restrictions and all of this nonsense was cut out because you were trying to save lives. So we know that it can be done. We don't have to have all the hoops and bells and whistles to be able to do the work. So let's just cut the nonsense and give the money to the organizations that are doing the work so the work can get done. It's real simple.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Commissioner Pradel.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to mention, this, Meg, you mentioned that just some lessons about the barriers and whatnot, and I know, hopefully this isn't the first round of things that we use to try to tackle some of the major issues in our community, including gun violence. We've allocated $1 million, and I'd like to think that there's a lot of lessons that we could be learned about that you've largely, suffered under, and applicants have suffered under, that maybe we can try to educate people in advance to make sure, hey, before you get into this for gun violence, let's make sure that we're working with you, make sure you can learn from these lessons that we've learned from the challenges that you found. So I was just going to make sure to lift that up because I know that's coming soon. Meg, I want to apologize to you because, I'm sure that you have taken a lot of heat in this process, and because, we had to move quickly to reach summer. And, Gwen, I want to apologize to you because on behalf of applicants, what I know is that when things are rushed, it is not on the side of equity, because things are going to be lost, things are going to be, challenged, communication is going to be an issue. And so I think there are definitely lessons to be learned in here. I don't believe there was any ill intent in that, but I want to make sure that we learn from this to try to impact as many people. The good news is that there are $875,000 going out the door to support youth, hopefully within weeks, which is hopefully going to be a powerful thing for this community. And that's in conjunction to the other funding that we approved tonight for the My City program and Youth Opportunities Unlimited for $825,000. So I applaud everybody for their work on this. And, again, I apologize to both sides that there are some hardships, but I know that we didn't pass this until April. The consultant came in around the same time in the spring. And then also, we're up against the deadline of trying to get dollars out there before summer starts. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Manager Ritzma.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Pradel, you're exactly right. The timing of when we brought in the consultant and these dollars going out the first time, the $1 million, we found out there were a lot more compliance hoops that had to go through. And I want to thank Meg for her patience, and certainly nothing on their end that caused this. It's purely having to account for these dollars to the federal government when it's all said and done. So we'll learn from this and move on, and we know now what to expect the next round. So
thank you, Manager Ritzma. Commissioner Pradel.
Yeah, one thing I'll say is that in my day job, I work for a nonprofit where we receive, federal funding. And I will say that federal funding is as much of a blessing as it is a curse, right? I mean, it is crippling burden on small nonprofits with small, lean teams. And it puts a lot of pressure both on like sub-recipients, whether that be a municipality or whether it be a nonprofit, to try to fit in these perfect boxes when we all know that we're not perfect boxes, right? And the tricky part is like for a sub-recipient or for a sub-sub-recipient like a nonprofit, if you don't follow those guidelines, they can say to you, you owe all this money back. Or, they can prevent you from seeking other federal funding in the future. And so I guess, I heard a comment about this, but I think it's a really sage point. When there's federal funding, time will not be on our side in most cases. When there's urgent needs or things happen to happen, we have to get creative about alternative sources when time is of the essence. So that's just from my personal lived experience with federal funding, but it can be a pain in the neck.
Other discussion, commissioners? Seeing none at this point, I think two things that are very, very important this evening is that we indeed intend for this money to do the best work it can now. And that's what is in front of us right now. In terms of the learnings from this process, the increased understanding of whatever federal compliance requirements are related to this ARPA money, which is what this is, I mean, that has become more evident, more discussion about the process. Obviously, that's something that we'll be more informed on going forward. But at this point, I'm very committed to the idea is that we move some of these resources out in time for this summer and get them to work. And hopefully we'll be measuring and watching that carefully. I know that's what the commitment is, to make sure that this indeed does make a difference. Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Bless you. Item H1 is approved. Next is item H2 on the regular agenda. City Manager Risma.
First reading of an ordinance to amend Section 33-24 of the Kalamazoo City Code to permit fishing at Millam Park.
Manager Risma, is there a staff report on this item?
We have our Director of Parks and Recreation, Patrick McVeary, here to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Commissioner Pradel.
I did have a question. This might be for you, Director McVeary, and for City Attorney Robinson. If anybody knows Millam Park and the proximity to Blanche Hull Preserve, they're basically one and the same for users, right? When they see them, I don't think some people even know that Blanche Hull Preserve is like a thing, because they see this giant park that everybody knows, and then there's this like plot of land that's a preserve on the other side. But the waterway, it weaves from Blanche Hull through Millam Park and back through Blanche Hull. And one of the things that I've just observed, I walk pretty frequently over in that area, is I pretty frequently notice that people, I guess I didn't realize it was illegal, but are illegally fishing on the Blanche Hull side. I understood it was on the Millam Park side. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I always think about when we're about to change laws is, like what ways could we set up people to be enforced in ways that they don't realize that, catches that they don't realize they're getting caught into. And I could very well see a situation where somebody, doesn't realize that Blanche Hull is a separate park, go over there and get, enforced or cited for fishing over in that side. So I was wondering if it would be possible to amend this to add Blanche Hull Park or Blanche Hull Preserve to this ordinance proposal.
Mm-hmm. I would defer to Attorney Robinson, but I would not see why not.
It's not an onerous burden. I would suggest when the motion is made to introduce the ordinance, that you add the phrase Blanche Hull Preserve. And then when it comes back in 2 weeks, that will be reflected in the proposed ordinance.
Commissioner Hess.
Are there any reasons why people shouldn't fish in Blanche Hull?
None that I am aware of.
Other questions for staff? All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Seeing that we have no more questions, is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this item? H2, please come to the podium, give us your name. You'll have 3 minutes for your comments.
I don't know if this is relevant or not, but I know when I was talking about running, I brought up a platform idea of cleaning the river up to David, and he informed me that the river is state property. It's not city property. So I'm not sure if somebody is wearing waders in the river has any enforcement by the city. I don't know, that just went through my head because I used to live in the UP, and there's this really ritzy resort. I mean, like Oprah can't even get in. Real ritzy. It's in Big Bay, look it up. And there were some hunters that walked up the river and got into the campground, but they didn't step on the campground, and there was nothing the law enforcement could do because it was state property. Anyways, that just popped into my head. I don't know if that would, I don't know, I take Commissioner Hess's stance of like, people are gonna fish, they're gonna fish. They already have to buy a license, but thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Messer, city resident. Thank you, Commissioner Pradel, for thinking and your coming proposed amendment. Whenever the commission is changing our local laws, please always think about how the enforcement authorities and the executive branch of the city might use the words literally. Don't ever leave anything to question. Make sure, think of all the ways that the ordinances may be used in ways that you hadn't intended. So, you know, because some people will, sometimes I hear the commission talk about, oh, well, staff won't do this or that, but they will. Some people get on power trips, so always consider how these will actually be enforced. And thank you, Commissioner Pradel, for your pending amendment.
Thank you very much. Any other comments on this item? Seeing none, the recommended action is a motion to offer the ordinance for first reading. Is there a motion, Commissioner Pradel?
I'll motion that the first reading of the ordinance is to amend Section 33-24 of the Kalamazoo City Code to permit fishing at Millen Park and Blanche Hall Preserve.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Juarez. Any discussion, commissioners? Seeing no discussion, Scott Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners. Item H2 is approved. Next is item H3, Manager Ritzma.
Adoption of an ordinance to amend the text of Chapter 50 zoning of the Kalamazoo City Code. And we have our city planner, Christina Anderson, coming forward as a follow-up to our last meeting with some updates.
Welcome, City Planner Anderson.
A couple weeks ago, we were here about 3 weeks ago, where this item was discussed. There were a couple of questions, and so I'm here tonight to do a quick presentation to fill in some of the information. It was suggested that by Commissioner Pradel that I use the presentation that that was before Plan Commission when they reviewed these zoning edits and then recommended them to your approval. So that is what I'm going to do. So this package of zoning edits that's before you tonight come from staff's use of the code over at least the last 3 years. So there's changes that are clarifying the text, like the wording, to make sure that the right intent is there, that it's stated clearly. You know, we are regularly working with residents all the way to big developers to talk about the code, and we want to make sure that it's easily understood across everybody. We are always studying best practices, and we are always listening to our other boards, including our Zoning Board of Appeals, who reviews variance cases. It is a sign that there's an issue with a code provision when there are regular variance requests for relief in that provision. And so we take all of that information. And that is what forms the changes that are before you tonight, because we keep a running list of things that aren't working, and try to be proactive to make those changes, as often as possible, rather than just keep the code in its static form and sometimes not always doing its job. As I mentioned before, this item went before the Planning Commission, where they held a public hearing and recommended to you the approval of these edits. So these edits fall into, all the edits are for the reasons I just said, but I'm going to break them down into 3 pieces, and then I will take your questions. So the first set of edits that you have in front of you are a list of changes that include things like the definition of a bed and breakfast, and changes to the parking requirement, tweaks to how we clarify what's allowed for a home occupation. There's about a dozen of these changes on in this first bucket. And to talk about a couple and just kind of to explain why we're bringing these forward, I'm going to use the example of the bed and breakfast. We've had about 5-6 variances since 2011 requesting relief in our bed and breakfast definition because it is so narrowly defined, which is often the case. And it says a bed and breakfast, you know, the proprietor of the bed and breakfast must be living in the dwelling unit of the bed and breakfast. So what can't happen with that definition? Multiple buildings on a lot used for a bed and breakfast because the proprietor can't live in all of them. Adjacent buildings that are used for a bed and breakfast, again, because you can't live in all of them. We had the case where we had a building that was divided into 2 units where the proprietor lived in one unit and was using the other one to use the other unit as a bed and breakfast. Same structure, but not the same dwelling unit. And so when we look at those things as kind of little barriers, they all function the same. They all function as a bed and breakfast. They all have the same impacts, outward impacts of a bed and breakfast. So we took those experiences and are adjusting the definition accordingly. We have made a couple changes to the parking code. We wanted to make sure, right now, downtown Kalamazoo is parking exempt. So you're not required to provide parking when you develop in downtown. And we currently have a provision if you have a building built before 2005 that is 2,000 square feet in certain districts, you don't have to provide parking. Well, we just kind of simplified that language to size of building because when you're really talking about small uses and infill in our neighborhoods, you know, providing parking can be a barrier to those projects. And so clarifying that language and other things like the industrial parking requirement, which we found was not accurate to the way industrial businesses operated. So we did some research, learned from our current in Kalamazoo operators and made some changes. The second bucket, or the second one that I want to talk about, really could have been in this first set, right? It is the change in the commercial district, the community commercial district, to allow ground floor residential. I'm talking about it separately for a couple of reasons. One, just to highlight, we currently have 2 active zoning codes. We have Appendix A, and we have Chapter 50. It was decided that after Imagine Kalamazoo that we'd update our zoning code incrementally, piece by piece, starting with barriers and kind of things that we wanted to solve for before we did major overhauls. But we didn't want to edit Appendix A because we felt that it just needed so much work, it was easier to start with a new document. So when we make edits, we take language that's in Appendix A, it gets reviewed, I say it runs through the washing machine, you know, comes out the other end with some edits, or maybe it's exactly the same, or maybe it's completely new. That's what gets put through public hearing and public review to get put in, that gets put into Chapter 50. It's very sensitive, sorry, can't back up. I'm in the process of working on an update to the commercial districts. We'll be doing engagement this summer, we'll be having lots of conversations on it. That means that the commercial districts are still in Appendix A. So in order to make the change to allow ground floor residential, I need to, with this action now, pull out community commercial district, put it in 50 to make the change to the table. And so that is why I pulled that one out separately, because several of you noticed that there was a lot of text associated with that one, and that's because I needed to pull over all of the relevant text for that district. Its definition, its dimensional standards, meaning setback, height, those type of requirements. And there are a wide list of uses that are permitted in the CC, Community Commercial District, that also needed to be brought over and had definitions and details. And so again, that's why I wanted to list that one separately and talk about it separately for the reason why it looks bigger or different than the other one. I will note that ground floor residential is something that we have been dealing with for a very long time as a issue and a request for relief. I had my staff do some research. In our commercial districts, we have about 30 requests of this over the last 10 years. And that is a sign that we should have dealt with this a long time ago. 30 requests is a lot. That means that there's a problem with that standard and it needs review. The final set of changes have to do with cannabis. We have, in our zoning code, we allow for both medical and adult use or recreational marijuana. And we are proposing a couple edits to that. They kind of fall into three major edits. So the first one is language that is already on the books that prohibits drive-throughs. It exists in the municipal code in 20B, but it is dealing with a land use regulation and therefore should be with land use regulations in the zoning code. And so it is being put into the zoning code because the zoning code regulates other drive-throughs, and that is the logical place for it. The second set of edits have to do with when multiple businesses are co-locating in the same building or on the same lot, and there are requirements from the state that deal with separate entrances and addresses, and we have incorporated that into our parameters for when a cannabis use is developed. Finally, and I talked a little bit about this at the previous meeting, medical and adult use were approved by the state using different processes. One was a legislative process and one was a citizen initiative that came with different parameters that were then, those different parameters that the state approved found their way into our zoning code. And this is most pronounced when we're looking at a provisioning center, which is the retail outlet for medical marijuana, and a retailer, which is the retail outlet, the selling outlet for cannabis for recreational adult use. And those two had different distance requirements from certain uses. That made it hard for applicants to understand where they could put their businesses. It made it hard for city staff to administer the code, and so we have made the change for those two to merge. So we are already allowed medical and adult use to exist in the same place, but now we've made the parameters the same too. And those are, that is the summary of the changes before you this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Commissioners, any questions for Planner Anderson? Commissioner Pradel.
Christina, it's one of those things where it always seems to happen this way. Like we get a message like run under the wire before the commission. I barely even saw this email, but we got an email from an Allison Parker on behalf of her and 3 other co-owners of Betty's RP Kalamazoo. I forwarded that to you pretty quickly because I wanted to make sure that we had a chance to cover that. Because basically what they were saying is in terms of the drive-through, they wanted us to remove that from everything tonight so that at the very least do a little bit more research, I just want to get your thoughts and see if you could talk about that a little bit, maybe share what options might be available if that's the case. That was my biggest concern. And
sure.
Yeah.
So that letter addressed 2 issues, the first one being drive-throughs and the request of the commission to allow drive-throughs associated with cannabis businesses. As I mentioned in my presentation a couple minutes ago, drive-throughs are already prohibited based on language in 20B. So its existence in the zoning code or not today, it's still prohibited because of the language in 20B. So what are your options? I think there are 2, and City Attorney Robinson might be able to chime in with others. You could choose to remove that language from what you have tonight and keep the status quo of prohibition through Chapter 20B and discuss through the process of updating 20B how, as a city, you want to handle drive-throughs. The other option is to leave it in place, which is also representative of the status quo because it's prohibited, and have that discussion either with the licensing updates this summer, starting with the July 5th Committee of the Whole meeting where this is going to be discussed, or through the update. I mentioned that we're updating the commercial districts. We could revisit it during that zoning process as well. So in my mind, those are 2 options that you have this evening. The other note in that letter that was received right before were comments on 2 things. So the first, they both had to do with zoning districts, allowing cannabis uses I presume of both varieties, in more districts in the city, or two, mapping more commercial district spaces in the city. So we are, again, about to update our commercial districts, which includes new districts and a new map. Looking at uses, looking at all those parameters. I would suggest that the second half of that comment be handled through that process, where we can look at it holistically across the whole city and think about where cannabis uses are permitted and what might change with the change in districts that could come about through this process. So certainly on the table for discussion, but it makes sense to do it through this bigger zoning commercial district update would be my recommendation.
Other questions, Commissioner Bradley? All right. Commissioners, other questions? Attorney Robinson.
I'd like to echo the statements of Planner Anderson in regard to the second question first. When the city embarked on permitting medical, we went through a very public process, getting input from both the community at large and potential businesses that were interested in starting a medical marijuana business. And we had a decision to make in terms of two things. Number one, were we going to put a hard limit or a hard cap on the number of businesses? And we decided that the better approach, and I can say that in hindsight, it was, I think, the best approach, because those communities that put hard caps were challenged by those applicants who didn't get a license because they were capped out. We decided to let the market decide how many businesses would locate in Kalamazoo. Associated with that decision was, were we going to cluster the businesses or were we going to disperse them? We decided to use the dispersal model so that wherever there was an appropriate commercial district, wherever in the community, they could locate there. So that didn't mean that one particular section or neighborhood of the community had to, if you will, feel the brunt of those type of businesses, for good or ill. So that was the decision that was made, and I think to that end, it has worked fairly well. I understand why businesses want more opportunities, but I could also suggest there's businesses who are already established would like to see the status quo stay, because there is a finite number, whatever that is, of locations where people can locate, and by keeping the competition down, that makes their ability to be successful. The other thing that we did, and this is after the adult use came in, was to permit social equity businesses to get a relief from the setbacks. If you're not a social equity business, you have to stay, I think it's 1,000 feet from another business. But if you're social equity, you get to pluck yourself in the middle of that. You're only subject to that 500 foot. So again, if we decide to open this up, that actually may not work to the benefit of social equity businesses, because they may find themselves more difficult to, if you will, plop in between other established businesses that are going to gobble up those eligible sites. Finally, in regard to the zoning drive-through question, and the point of Planner Anderson is well taken. While it is, the drive-through is prohibited as to marijuana, it is a commercial district drive-through prohibition. So we're not saying, by doing this, we'd be saying, well, this type of business can have a drive-through in the same zoning classification, but this other type of business can't. And that's why you want uniformity in this type of zoning ordinance, because by making that differentiation, now you're opening up the possibility for those businesses who would like drive-through but who can't because they are not selling marijuana to say, I want a variance. You're permitting the marijuana business down the street for me to have a drive-through. I want the same type of benefit, but I can't have it, so I want a variance. So and by prohibiting drive-through, and that was a decision first made by the state, and that the state relented during COVID, the city has continued that. However, in prohibiting drive-throughs in our zoning code. We are not prohibiting the curbside or drive-up, if you will, type of sales. So even though we're prohibiting drive-through, we're not prohibiting curbside service. So I think that's a distinction that also has to be recognized. And when we come before you with the licensing portion, again, that prohibition will be written out, or whatever the language will be written in a manner consistent with the zoning code. So I want you to consider those things as well in making this decision, because quite frankly, I think Planner Anderson has hit the high spots and done a good job of it.
Thank you, Attorney Robinson. Other discussion or questions? Yeah, Commissioner Pradle.
And I ask you another hypothetical. So, one of the options you laid out, if I'm understanding correctly, is basically just to stay the course today. And it could be re-examined if working with this business owner, there's an option down the road, or is it settled after tonight? Can it not be? Because it exists in two separate places, right? So
It currently exists in two separate places. No ordinance is static, right? We have the opportunity to review and edit through the public process for anything. So if the city determines that drive-throughs are something they would like to permit, then we'll do this process like we would, or add it to the next time we're updating the zoning code, have the discussion, do the public notice, and have those meetings and figure out if that's the way we want to go. Now, we would need to do it in two places if we're doing it later in the year, depending on what happens with the licensing ordinance edits. But, in the same reason that we're bringing all these other zoning changes before you tonight, it's because we found that things weren't working. And so when that happens, we should be proactive and bring them for you. Perhaps not wait for 30 variance requests, but.
the part I struggle with, and I'm curious to hear what everybody else has to think about this too, but, this isn't like a big box retailer for cannabis that reached out, right? It's a mom and pop shop, basically. It's a startup, right? And, they got 4 investors who are reaching out who are saying, to us, on the ground, drive-through would make a difference. And so, it's hard to ignore that, right? There's not a ton, even though they seem like they're on every street corner now, there's not, there's still not a huge number of cannabis locations in the city, and most of them are kind of like chain places, right? And the whole point is trying to support and lift up people that aren't necessarily, big business cannabis, right? So I kind of struggle with that, but I also recognize there's a number of ways you could go about it. This is just one person that reached out, and we've been discussing this for weeks, and we get this, an hour before the meeting. We're lucky somebody even saw it, So I definitely want to get everybody else's thoughts on that. And
I guess I'll jump in on that. So this is a little bit kind of like where do you start in the story sort of thing too. I think Vice Mayor Cooney and I were the only folks sitting up here that were around during this whole process of creating our own local ordinance, which was based on a great deal of community input from business people, from communities, from neighborhoods. I would say that I don't think there's been as much actual engagement and community discussion happen in these chambers a lot, maybe related to any ordinance, as there was in that one that you took us through. So there's a lot of input on that time, and that created the ordinance infrastructure that we have now. So I don't want to not recognize any of that work that got us to this point. Another thing I think is that this is a huge undertaking. This is ends up being a living document, and we've had a lot of discussion about all these various pieces that are coming together this evening. And I do want to be sensitive to the idea of trying to pull out one item or another item or kind of rewriting it on the dais. I mean, I feel like we don't always do our best thinking when we're doing that. And, you know, we do have thoughtful, trained staff that are our team that do this full time. And so to some extent, I look for some, you know, recommendations there, and I believe the recommendation we're getting is we think this is a good package for approval. And no one else, of course, knows better than you, Commissioner Pradel, because you have attended Planning Commission meetings. You know that the work that happens there, which is another volunteer body of the city that makes recommendations to us, and this was recommended. So relative to kind of that whole picture and recognizing that it's not something you can do now anyway. If we voted to take this out tonight, that doesn't do anything for anybody in this moment. We've got other opportunities related to these things we have to do going forward. My inclination is to say, all right, this is the package, this is the bulk of work. We've talked about it, we've had a couple presentations on it. I'm comfortable moving that as it is, and then if we want to really focus on something else, I mean, for example, the idea of drive-throughs writ large. I mean, why shouldn't a cookie store, you know, half a block down maybe able to have a drive-through? Are we going to be selective in our drive-through opportunities? How do we want to think about that? I'm not prepared to have a full discussion that is fully informed on that, you know, this evening, and I would suggest staff probably aren't either. So all those things said, I'm going to be supportive of these changes, and I don't know if that helps, but that's how I'm thinking about it. So, any other questions? All right. Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who'd like to comment on this item? Thank you, Planner Anderson, very much. That's item H3. Please come to the podium, give us your name, and whether you live in the city. Speakers will have 3 minutes.
Hi, I have a question about this zoning. I don't know if it's my little green space that's on Stockbridge and Lake Street, because Lisa Wilcott has took that up against the zoning board 3 times, and she's been denied that request. I wish when you guys are zoning certain areas, you would tell the people which area you're zoning. I mean, I don't have a clue what you're talking about or where you're talking about. I just assume it's my little neighborhood. We flood. We need that green space to survive. Our city does nothing for us. We get road close signs. So I just wonder if that is this a way to skip the zoning board of appeals? Just to go over every neighborhood's head and just zone everywhere so you can build whatever you want, wherever you want, without having to tell anybody in the neighborhood. I mean, I wouldn't care what you build, where you build, but I flood. And the more you build in my neighborhood, the more I flood. When KVCC Growingfield put all that orange down and put all that dirt on top of it, they built it up way up higher than our homes. I flooded, and I've flooded ever since. And it's coming again this year. The ponds have been high. Once those ponds overflow, they fill up all the storm drains in the whole neighborhood. Crosstown floods, Portage flood, Vine floods, Walter floods, Lake floods, Stockbridge floods, Burdick floods, over by the hospital floods, the senior center floods. We can't get in or out because you build higher than our properties. So it just makes me think that this is a sneaky way of trying to get that zoning in so Lisa Wilcott can build in a floodplain on contaminated soil. Yes, we do need homes. People need places to live. I agree with that 100%. But why don't you do it in an area where they can thrive, not sink, or have to float away because of the floodplain? I'm about ready to buy a little boat just to get out of my neighborhood. I have to leave. I can't stand the sewage that comes up through the storm drains. I have to leave. my own home. I've been there 38 years. I'm a widow. I work 2 jobs to keep putting in furnaces, keep putting in water heaters, and keep paying someone to clean up the sewage that comes up in my home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, next, please.
Jeff Messer, city resident. So I heard Attorney Robinson say that, so currently there's apparently a lot of different kinds of businesses that are prohibited to have drive-throughs. I guess it'd be nice to know, to maybe have Planner Anderson tell us what kind of businesses now are currently permitted to have drive-throughs, and I guess like every other type of business is prohibited from having them. But I understand the thing about consistency in that. You know, one thing I've learned is that putting things off for later isn't really a good strategy. You know, time passes and you never return to those things that you intended to do. And so I'm a fan of doing things now. So I would ask the commission commissioner to make an amendment to remove the prohibition on cannabis drive-throughs in the zoning ordinance. And then a future city commission meeting, you would have an agenda item to repeal section 20B or whatever it is that prohibits that on the licensing side. So I would like to see that gone on both sides, because apparently I don't patronize cannabis dispensaries, but based on the previous discussion that we've had this meeting and the previous 2 meetings, that that prohibition has been suspended. And so we know that this hasn't caused a problem having the drive-throughs. So that's my opinions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who'd like to comment on this item? Seeing no more comments, the recommended action is a motion to adopt the ordinance. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Decker.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Hess. Discussion. Commissioner Pradel.
I was going to mention for the CC zoning for the ground level residential, that's awesome. I mean, in addition to mentioning like the 30 variances that have been asked for that, I remember in 2019 I met a mom and pop shop at the farmers market, and they specifically said that they put up their business in Galesburg because of this very reason. They wanted to have residential on the ground level and have still function with their business. And so, you know, I think that's a case in point of where, you know, we're supporting small business potentially in the city of Kalamazoo. You know, you made the great point about consistency, and that's, I guess, a perspective I had not spent a lot of time thinking about until this email came up tonight. But I wonder if, and this is a question for City Manager Ritzma and like your team, but I wonder if there's any opportunity, if we were to pass this tonight, to have somebody follow up with this business and just kind of pick their brain and see how they would have planned to use it, and maybe see if there's some way where we could support them in a, you know, in some way to, you know, make that happen through a variance or something, or maybe see if they have ideas working with other cannabis locations, what needs they have. So I wonder if that'd be possible.
Sure, we can look into that.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Item H1 is approved. We have more items on our regular agenda, so we will move back to items that were on the consent agenda that are now on the regular agenda. First one, Manager Ritzma.
Yes, item G4, approval of a contract with Welcome Construction Incorporated for improvements to the Millen Park Playground in the amount of $178,000.
Any kind of explanation you'd like to provide for us about this item, Manager Rissman?
We have Parks and Rec Director here for any questions.
Okay. Commissioners, now is an opportunity for some questions with our good Parks Director. Any questions? All right, seeing none. Now is an opportunity for anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this item. Please come to the podium, give us your name, city, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Jeff Messer, city resident. The agenda report for this item says this project is being awarded to Balcoma Construction Incorporated utilizing the City of Kalamazoo local preference policy. Maybe Attorney Robinson can explain to us the local preference policy, what that's all about, specifically whether or not that means the City of Kalamazoo or Kalamazoo County, and what does it mean for a business to be located into a city? Does having a P.O. box within the city qualify them as being, located in the city? Does owning a vacant lot within the city? What is required to meet the business within the city requirement? Because Balcoma Construction Incorporated, their website lists their address as 3610 Hoover Street, which is in the Oakwood neighborhood. That particular address is blurred out on Google Street View, so the public can't see what is located there. 3610 Hoover Street is a residential property in the RS5 zone. That is our single-family zone. That is not a commercial zone. That's a single-family. That's our most least dense zoning type, and very little commercial activity is permitted there. So the home is titled in the name of Jim Balcoma, not Balcoma Construction. You would think that if the business is located at that address, it would be titled in the name of Balcoma Construction. Jim acquired the home from the Kalamazoo County Treasurer's Office on October 11, 2011, while Mary Balcoma was a treasurer. The sale price was a very inexpensive $4,900. Also, they're delinquent on their water bill to the city. The shut-off notice was sent there 4 days ago on June 2nd. So I really have a lot of questions about, what does it take to qualify as a local, bidder for this, preferential City of Kalamazoo. Are there any construction equipment there? Is this a one-man business? And if it's a one-man business that is subcontracting, then who's actually doing the work? And then, of course, does Balcoma Construction actually have construction equipment, construction employees of their own? And where are those located? I suspect if Balcoma Construction has employees and equipment, that's probably not located at this address, 3610 Hoover Street, which is blurred out on Google Street View. So I have a lot of questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a staff person who would like to respond to some of those questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner. In terms of the agenda item, what the local preference is, the Millen Playground improvements went out to bid this spring. There were 2 bidders that submitted bids. Balcoma Construction and a company named Riverworks out of Holland, Michigan. Anytime the city's purchasing policy is anytime there is bids within or less than 2% of each other, local preference can be asked or taken into effect. With Balcoma Construction being in Kalamazoo, they were able to actually invoke that. And part of that process is meeting the lowest bid. Their bids were very similar in price. I can't remember exactly the amount, but it was less than 2%. We met as a staff with purchasing and then as well as the landscape architect working on the project, looked over past performance from both Balcoma and this Riverworks Construction. There was no actual performance that was submitted by Riverworks that was this type of work that's being done at Millen Park as far as the playground. So in discussions internally, we decided that we would honor the local preference portion of the policy to be enacted. So that's how Balkema was actually selected for the bidding process.
Thank you, appreciate that. Do you have anything to add, Attorney Robinson?
Yeah, the definition of what is a local vendor or bidder is Kalamazoo County. It's not restricted to the city. And I don't know, and I don't have the contract documents in front of me, where Balkema Construction identified themselves in those documents. But it does not appear, at least upon what was presented to the commission, that the Hoover address is necessarily owned by Balkema Construction. Now, it may be the home of an officer or something, and they do some business out of there, but Balkema Construction, I don't think has a business address in the city per se. I think they're just outside the city, but they are in Kalamazoo County. There is a provision under state law that if the city cannot award a contract to a person or an entity in default to the city, if the house on Hoover is owned by Balkema Construction and they're delinquent on the water bill, that is, while troubling, as James Baker, the director of our public services, says, we no longer shut people off for delinquent water bills. So that we really don't have much of the same lever that we used to have, but if there is somebody in arrears, they are in default. But as long as the house is not owned by Balkema Construction is not in default to the city. So that would permit you to approve this contract.
Thank you, Chair Robinson. Any follow-up questions from Commission on this item? All right, thank you. Commissioner Pradel.
Just to be clear, so this specifically, this was for Balkema Construction, not Balkema Excavating, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Because I believe Balkema Excavating is on River Street, I believe.
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
Commissioner Juarez.
I just appreciate Jeff and his concerns because those are very unique things that sometimes people miss. And I just super appreciate his diligentness to look through things and see those discrepancies, maybe if they're discrepancies, and bringing them to our attention is super important. You know, and for Jeff to have that and to bring that is very appreciative. I want you to know that, Jeff, first and foremost. And so I thank you for doing your essential homework, right? And so I just appreciate that. And if more people had their eyes on things like that, I think we'd be a great community, which we're getting to that place, right? I digress.
Thank you, Commissioner Juarez. So seeing no more questions and no other speakers from the audience, the recommended action is a motion to approve the agreement. Is there a motion?
So move.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Cooney,
Second.
supported by Commissioner Decker. Any further discussion? Commissioner Pradel.
I mean, I have to believe that at a certain point, you have to take people kind of at face value, what they tell you they reside or do business at a certain place. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but if somebody forges that or provides incorrect things, I mean, it's against the law. So I would imagine that there would be an opportunity to look at that if that was an issue.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Vice Mayor Cooney.
I do want to say one thing. My grandkids play over in that playground, and they have ancient playground equipment, and they would welcome new playground equipment over there.
All right. Resounding affirmation for new playground equipment. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Manager Ritzma.
Item G11, adoption of a resolution recommending approval of a social district and commons area permit for Factory Coffee LLC located at 205 West Lovell Street.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Is there anyone here who is available for questions on this topic?
Yeah, we have our Deputy Director of Community Planning and Economic Development, Antonio Mitchell.
The excellent Antonio Mitchell. Thank you, sir.
Here for questions. I don't think we need.
Yeah. Are there any questions from Commission for Deputy Director Mitchell on this item? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this item? That's item, well, formally, item 11 under the consent agenda. Please state your name. You're already at the podium. You have 3 minutes.
Jeff Messer, city resident. So I'm totally in favor of you improving this. I don't have any issues with factory coffee. My issue is that, so we've had the social commons that was implemented in like late 2020 or something like that, and so people have been out drinking downtown for a couple of years now, and it's not been a problem. The problem is that people are only permitted to do that when they buy their beverages from certain establishments and they're out of certain cups. So some people can participate in this and in businesses, and some people can't. And the last time the commission expanded the social district, when they expanded it to include Bronson Park, I said, okay, so we're okay with drinking out in public, and it's not been a problem, so why are we saying it's okay for some people and some establishments to drink out in public and it's not for others? Why don't you just repeal the ordinance that prohibits public consumption of intoxicants? I'm not in favor of public drunkenness and rowdiness and stuff, but if people can walk with one kind of alcoholic beverage or sit on a city bench, why, just because of the brand name or whatever, if you're drinking out of an aluminum can, that's prohibited, but if you're drinking out of a plastic cup that says Social Commons District on it, that's okay. So what I want, I'm going to repeat what I said in whenever you expanded it to Bronson Park. Just repeal the ordinance that prohibits public consumption of alcohol. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from anyone in the chambers in this item? Attorney Robinson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess there's another public comment.
All right. Yes, please.
I just want to echo kind of what Jeff was saying. I did go back into the archives in Kalamazoo Public Library about when the drinking district prohibition started. It was in, I don't know, I want to say like this. There was some people fighting, and originally it started just banning hard liquor, which, I mean, I don't have a problem with. But I do like the idea of making it easier. I don't know if you guys have ever traveled. Like one of my friends just went to Paris, and they were saying how cool it was that you could just like drink a glass of wine in a park. And I think that's cool. I don't know if it does have to be a slower transition so that we do avoid some of our more American tendencies to just like go hard. But I do support the idea of, I've talked to a lot of cops, I've talked to a lot of business owners, a lot of members of the public, and nobody has had anything negative to say except for the very beginning there was a lot of littering, but that's stopped. So thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one, Attorney Robinson.
Again, for the commission's edification, this social district and commons area was legislation that was passed at the outset of the COVID in order to help local businesses that already had a liquor license for sale by the beverage, if you will, as opposed to packaged liquor sales. And it is restricted to a defined area and a commons area, and it has to be done in accordance with our ordinance and the statute and Liquor Control Commission rules. The rationale for not opening it up greater is that, again, it has to be a plastic cup. It has to be identify the business who gave that cup, and you can go back and get a refill. By opening it up, you lose that control. We are a college town, and that can be problematic, particularly during certain times of the year, homecoming, for instance, and the usual bacchanalia celebrations that occur, the opening of the term in the fall and the closing of the term in the spring. And Kalamazoo's not been immune from problems with drinking and gathering of college youth. So as to permit open drinking would only likely exacerbate that. The other thing is, again, social district plastic cups as opposed to glass containers that could be, again, littered and broken and cause injury to innocent bystanders. So that's the rationale that went into what the legislature was thinking, and because, and we did not have to adopt a social district program in Kalamazoo. It was optional, but we chose to do so in order to help out local businesses that were, who again, selling alcohol by the glass, help them out during that period of time.
Thank you, Attorney Robinson. Commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to adopt the ordinance. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Motion made by Commissioner Hoffman, supported by Commissioner Pradel. Correct? Any discussion, team? Commissioner Pradel.
I just think it's important to note that, we're not voting on the social drinking district tonight. We're voting to recommend approval of the social drinking district commons permit for factory coffee. So it's important to note that too, that, although the comments taken are appreciated, we're very narrowly focused on a permit here tonight.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Pradel. Any other discussion? Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The item is approved. Last item on our regular agenda, Manager Ritzma.
Item G13 is approval of a request from the Lift Foundation to increase their loan for the renovation of the Knights Inn by an additional $175,000 for a total loan amount of $375,000.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. And if there are questions, is there anyone on the team who's available
Yes,
for that?
Deputy Director Mitchell is here.
All right. Any questions from Commission? I don't see any questions. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on this item?
Jeff Messer, city resident. So there was something interesting on tonight's agenda. So Commissioners Pradel and I have frequently removed items from the consent agenda when they're first readings, and I thought it was interesting that the first reading of the fishing ordinance for Millen Park and then now Blanche Hall was in the regular agenda to begin with, because that's something that both of us had kind of asked for, that we wanted the first reading of the ordinance amendments automatically in the regular agenda. So I have another request, is that when commissioners have something they need to abstain from because of a conflict of interest, that maybe those should also be automatically put on the regular agenda. That's why I removed this one for similar reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wanting to comment on this item? Seeing no one, the recommended action is a motion to adopt the ordinance. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Made by Commissioner Hess,
Support.
supported by Commissioner Hoffman. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
I will be abstaining on this. I am a volunteer member of the Lift Foundation Board. I don't receive any kind of remuneration for participating. All my time there is volunteer. However, I am a member of the Lift Foundation Board, so I will be abstaining on this particular item. And the motion passes. Thank you, Commissioners. We've got some more to do on our agenda here. We got one more item under policy. Well, no, we got reports and legislation.
Yes, I just want to highlight an event that's taking place this Friday, and Vice Mayor, you mentioned it earlier in the meeting. It is our Department of Public Safety and Park and Recreation Summer Kickoff Carnival at Upjohn Park, and it's, again, this Friday, the 10th, from 3 to 7 p.m., and look forward to seeing the community out there and all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. So the next item is under policy items, and it's K1 under policy items. Manager Ritzma?
Yes, we have approval of the Michigan Municipal League to conduct the city attorney selection process and authorize the city manager to sign all documents on behalf of the city.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. I don't know if I see HR Director Duzick here.
She is not here this evening, but our Deputy City Manager, Jeff Chamberlain, is, and of course, the members of the subcommittee.
Sure. Okay. Sounds great. So what I would like to do, I mean, this is really commission-driven as much as staff-driven, as everyone's well aware. The gentleman who's sitting to my left here has announced that he is intending to retire from a long and accomplished career in the public legal sphere. And so that means that we are going to have to replace him. In order to do that process, there will be multiple steps, but really the first step is engaging to help us with a process to go through this. So that will be all steps in terms of a profile, what we're looking for, how we will be going about advertising for this position, that sort of thing. So to get us just to this point, a subcommittee was formed, Commissioner Decker, Commissioner Pradel, and I, who've been working with DCM Chamberlain and Shelley Duzick, who's our HR director, to really think through this at the very beginning and come back to the full commission for a recommendation. And so that's where we are tonight, that recommendation. And I would like to ask committee members, to add other things we thought about or what we were thinking about, how we landed on this particular recommendation that's coming to the City Commission. I will. Commissioner Decker?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, so City Attorney Robinson will be leaving us. And again, we do need to find someone to replace him. And our process that we went through is when we met in the subcommittee, we had different organizations that brought us proposals and that we all looked at them. I think we all came into consensus that with the Michigan Municipal League, they were going to be able to offer us more hands-on information. They would be more accessible to the commission and to the community. They would be active in helping us, as the mayor said, put together the qualifications that we want within a city attorney. It was not the cheapest one, and it was not the most expensivest one. We did find that they do have a lot of diversity within the Michigan Municipal League, and they're really going to pull from a great talent pool, I believe, from just the state of Michigan. So we've all looked at it. This is the one that we have chosen. We think it is a good fit. We think it's a good fit for the city. We think it's a good fit going forward. And again, as the mayor said, there will be more information that comes out that we talk about. The entire commission will definitely be involved. As we have things, we will bring these to the commission each time.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Commissioner Pradel, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would just add that the thing that was particularly impressive with them is they have a bank of individuals who, make this their work. So they sound like they do a pretty good job of working with the commission and interviewing each of us and working with people who work most closely with the city attorney in City Hall. But one thing that was particularly notable is that they're willing to work with us in terms of community outreach strategy to make sure that there's some sort of a funnel to make sure if people do have some thoughts from the community that they can get to us as well. But I particularly am appreciative of the fact that, it's not just one person who runs this consulting firm. So, ideally, we tell them what we want, and then they identify the best fit person from that consortium of people who are experts who do this work on their behalf or as a team to do that work on our behalf. So It was also one of the more affordable ones as well, too. So we thought that was attractive as well.
Thank you very much. That is an organization that we are a member of, the Michigan Municipal League, and we also participate in a variety of other activities with the Michigan Municipal League as well, related to lobbying in the state, sharing best practice information, that sort of thing. At this point, I guess I will just ask if there's any questions from Commission on this recommendation. Okay, not seeing any. Well then, is there anyone in the audience who'd like to comment on this item? It's item K1. Please come to the podium, give us your name, and whether you live in the city. You'll have 3 minutes. Seeing no comments, the recommended action is a motion to approve. Is there a motion?
So move.
Motion made by Commissioner Juarez. Thank you.
I'll support that.
Supported by Commissioner Hess. Any discussion? Commissioner Hess.
I would like to thank the subcommittee for doing this work. This is necessary and important work for the greater good of the city. So because I trust my fellow commissioners and our mayor to do this work, I'm in support of this.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Any other discussion? So one thing I want to remind all of us is that there are just a handful of people in the city, 4 at this point, who directly report to the City Commission, and obviously this is one of those 4 folks. So this entire undertaking is a group hiring process. It's all of us together doing this, and this is going to take time. We're going to be thoughtful about this. I don't want to rush into it. This is obviously a very important decision, and there's presumably and hopefully we'll have a decent number of applicants to evaluate. So this is going to take some months to do everything that we want to do here in terms of gather community input, gather individual input, put together that model of what we're looking for, get that out there, accept applications, decide who we're going to interview, how we're going to just determine, rank, people we're interviewing to make that decision. So there's many, many steps to this. It's not going to be done in a couple of weeks. At this point, our good Attorney Robinson has expressed a desire to carry us to that date when we hire a new city attorney, and I appreciate that very much. So that's the process, and this allows us to really get started on it, engage that firm. So thank you for everyone's support. Clerk Borland, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The item is approved. Now is the opportunity for Commissioners to make comments. Attorney Robinson, I'm sorry.
I'd just like to, before the Commission comments, usually I don't get to speak, but I wanted to thank the Commission for taking this action. As of June 2nd, I completed 42 years as a municipal attorney. I started June 2nd, 1980 with the city of Battle Creek as an assistant city attorney, and so here I am 42 years later. I would also be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity, and I think I've got my dates right. In 2 days, on June 8th, is the 50th anniversary of the graduating class of Kalamazoo Central 1972. So for my fellow Maroon Giants who are listening, unfortunately, due to COVID, I don't think we're having a reunion this year, but congrats to all my fellow graduates.
Thank you, Attorney Robinson. Okay, I've been kind of shifting the order around a little bit here. So is there someone who wants to start tonight? Okay. Commissioner Juarez.
Yeah, there's a lot. We talked about KidNet and the $1 million that were allocated and stuff like that. And I think part of part of our job up here is to make sure that when federal dollars transition into the community, they transition as possible. Because it's obvious that some of these organizations didn't get that second round of applications, right? And so I think we have high capacity leaders in the city staff that can make that work, right? And so we do appreciate the adjusting of allocating that money because of some of the barriers that took place, and money got out there, but people were missed. And it's not okay for us to be okay with that. And I pray that we learn from our mistakes. We learn from just the situation and the circumstances, and we're aware of what's happening. And I feel like, those kind of things will cause, I think, trust with the city, right? And so I just want to echo that for those organizations that didn't get a chance to get into the second round or get into the new application that was sent out. And so my heart goes out to them. And so we still got a lot of work to do around that, right? Gun violence, you've seen some money was allocated to Urban Alliance for some gun violence stuff. And then we're continual conversations about what the recommendation is from the committee that started the conversation with gun violence and how that transitions into what the county's doing, And I think one of those things that we have to be really mindful of is continuing to have a clear line of communication open so that we as a community and as city continue to build that trust, right? And to know each other's hearts. And so I'm excited about that stuff. We have a couple events coming up. And I have a flyer to give to some of my colleagues here, if you want to pass some of these down. We're doing a gun violence resource and resilience rally. Saturday, Saturday, the 11th, we'll be at Rockwell Park on the east side at 3 o'clock. Saturday, June 25th, we'll be at Urban Alliance on the south side. And then Saturday, July 2nd, on the north side. And so my hope is that people would attend this. My hope is people would come together and stand in solidarity for this, because we did see the resolution and we talked about it a little bit here and what that looks like. And I think we need to revisit that resolution and really look at it from the standpoint and the context that it was derived from, so that we're not just making and doing things outside of that. It seems like if that was the case, if the resolution spoke a certain volume, then we should stay in tune with that volume. And I think it would be really good for, that committee just to reconvene and think and look at that resolution and really move from that context. And so, yeah, there's, my heart goes out to some of the tragedies that took place just recently, in Texas and these other places. And then even here in Kalamazoo, a 17-year-old kid watched his father get shot in the chest, over $80. And I think I've said this at the train station when the shooting happened there, that we as a people our hearts become seared to the fact that we tolerate gun violence or we tolerate death. And it's one of those things where we have to really consider and reconsider, why have we come to that position? Because in a couple weeks, that man's face will be on a T-shirt or on an obituary, and the conversation about him will be less and less and less and less. And so will the kids from Texas and the other shootings that happen in Buffalo and all these other places. And so I think we just need a heart check a severe heart check on the way we look at some of the things that have come to us, even with, you know, the protection of vouchers, man. Like, why wouldn't we want to protect that? You know what I mean? And I get landlords, I get their positions, I get their you know, what they're dealing with. At the same time, that word community has a really profound word in it, unity. And sometimes unity is very difficult when we tend to take a hard stance on something, and it keeps us divided. And so I want to share that because I think that we're getting close to that mark. And sometimes conversations get difficult and they're hard, and you know, they become personal, and you get your emotions wrapped in it because it's work that's never been done before, and it's like we're getting to a place, right? And it's obvious that those things come up, right? Those emotions and those thoughts and those feelings. And so I applaud the people who are working on gun violence, the people who are working on the homeless situation, the people who are working on the housing crisis, the people who are working on all these things, mental illness, you know, all these things. There's so much stuff, right? So much stuff. There's only 24 hours in a day. We can only get so much accomplished. But where, you know, in the scripture it says, where one can chase away thousands, two can chase away tens of thousands. And I think if we gather together more so in those sense of unity, we can see work happen. And we're doing that. And we have to be willing to compromise. We have to be willing to continue. That my sister Charlotte Davis says this all the time. Continue to come back to the table, no matter what. If you're willing, continue to come back to the table. Conversations can happen and things can change. And so I appreciate that so much. That's it for me.
Well, I wish I'd left you for last. But you weren't. You're first. So, Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. I just kind of want to talk about the a great event that Commissioner Hess and I supported this weekend. It was golfing for the VFW Post 827. I'm not a golfer, so it was a fun game. It was, I will say, it was very, very humbling to speak to some of the individuals there, especially when we went back to the VFW and kind of talked to them and kind of heard some of their stories. It was a good spot. It was a good place to be. You got to hear, you know, what branch they served in, how long they were in, and they were very appreciative that, you know, that we were there to represent. I do also want to say that I am very excited for this Friday at the KDPS Summer Kickoff. So excited that I was there last Friday and nobody was there. So I'm very excited to go there and support the community, support the KDPS, and I love the new website. It's beautiful. It's so user-friendly. I can find things easily, and I believe one of our residents here also commented on the website. I believe it was Mr. Stanley. That's the piece of the communication that we're working on. That is one of the big pieces right there, and I think that's getting put into place. So, yeah, hopefully I'll see everyone this Friday. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Commissioner Hoffman?
Given the hour, I'm going to yield my time back to the dais. Have a good evening.
Wow. All right. I'm just going to pause on that just a minute. All right. Thank you. Commissioner Pradel.
Sure. I was going to just mention the website and communication improvements as well. I mean, just think about over the last couple of years, we have a public information officer, and we're about to hire a communications manager for City Hall. We have a new website. So I just want to thank administration that you hear us and you're making steps to really improve communication. I'm really excited to see where this communication manager will go with helping us improve those efforts. Wanted to make sure to just take a pause for a minute, just think about this. So tonight, as part of the consent agenda, we approved $825,000 to support and employ 200 youth this summer through the My City KRESA Youth Opportunities Unlimited program. Amazing program, game changer. We approved $875,000 for the first time ever, money that would not have been injected into the community to help kids who maybe otherwise wouldn't have had opportunities to find something positive to find a part of this summer. And who knows what lives will be changed or trajectory has been changed. Maybe there'll be some kid that will be up here someday because of that impact, this summer. I think Commissioner Warres, you said it best. I mean, a lot of these things are things we've never done before. I mean, when you listen to like people who've been on commission for a long time about when it was like slash and burn days, more money, more problems. I mean, it's just how it goes sometimes. Like when you have opportunities to do this aspirational work, there's going to be contention and growing pains. And, I appreciate that we're taking the learning curve to do that. Wanted to make sure to share this as well. I mean, another big deal. I mean, the sustainability plan that we've been working on for a long time, this is a 10-year plan to be the roadmap for our community. I mean, this is for the long haul. We heard a presentation on that. We'll hopefully take action on that at our next meeting. This is a big deal. And this is totally going to nerd out here for a second. But in G9 tonight, we passed a supplemental that was like $2.2 million, right? And why would we have a supplemental increase of $2.2 million to move solid waste, AKA, waste from the water reclamation plant? Well, there's a supplemental because gas prices are $5 a gallon, right? I mean, that's a big part of it. And here we're going to pass a sustainability plan, hopefully, in 2 weeks that maybe will change the way that our fleet looks for the city, that in the future, even though that's waste management that's taking that as part of that contract, maybe that'll be offset by the gas consumption that's saved on our city fleet someday. I don't know, but it's all interconnected, right? And so I think that's pretty exciting and worth sharing. And I think, the only other thing with the sustainability plan that I was going to mention is I do agree with the concern over having dedicated funding for staff and project budget for that, because it's just too important of work to negate that fact. And, I already look at like Jamie McCarthy and, how much she's doing on her portfolio to make all this work possible. And, I think that we have to recognize the fact that we have to be very thoughtful about meeting capacity to meet the needs of our growing dynamic city. So I'll leave it at that. I wish everybody a great night.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Commissioner Hess.
Commissioner Pradel, I love when you nerd out. Yeah, all very wise. Thank you so much. I have tonight gratitude for Kevin Lavender of the Fatherhood Network and Gwendolyn Hooker of Justice Against Bullying in Schools for being here and for representing all they're doing to lead this community. I too was happy to see Jamie presenting the sustainability plan, which has been in the works for 2 years. And I look forward to putting it into motion at our next meeting. I want to give a shout out to Out Front Kalamazoo and to Tracy Hall for working with folks and putting on a tremendous Pride event on Saturday at Arcadia Festival site. There was great energy. It was for both Friday and Saturday. So it was really wonderful, and it is what happens when our community decides to come together. I have an announcement, and y'all got, it's the community brunch for young black males on Friday, June 17th at 10 a.m. at the Radisson. Pastor Millard Southern of AME Allen Chapel Church is leading the charge on that. He's bringing in Cassie Russell, former U of M basketball great, All-American, and NBA star, to speak to young black males and to work in this community. He'll also preach at the church on Sunday. But Cassie happens to be related to Pastor Southern. And so I applaud Pastor Southern for his diligence in putting this together. There is a website, and it is on, it's on Eventbrite, https://communitybrunchkazoo, KZOO.eventbrite.com, or please contact me for more information. I'll plan on being there, and the city will be giving Cassie a proclamation for the day that Cassie built. Tonight, and thanks for the time, Commissioner Hoffman, I want to read Amanda Gorman's poem in response to the Uvalde shootings. At the inauguration last year, last year, I shared her inaugural poem because of its great historical significance. This is both a time of reflection and action in our country and in our city. And most of us up here are wearing orange in response to the outcry here in our city. Gun violence, the war in Ukraine, homelessness, school shootings, environmental destruction, all are based on a mindset of elimination of an enemy, of the other, and a perceived problem. I believe the solution begins with a new thought, a new mindset, and that's what everyone here, including the folks at Fatherhood Network and Justice Against Bullying, are working and are giving their lives to create this new mindset of inclusion, of equity, and diversity. So this is indeed a critical moment in our American history where we must embrace our neighbor and not kill them. Here's Amanda Gorman's poem, Hymn for the Hurting. Everything hurts. Our hearts shadowed and strange, minds made muddied and mute. We carry tragedy, terrifying and true, and yet none of it is new. We knew it as home, as horror, as heritage. Even our children cannot be children, cannot be. Everything hurts. It's a time hard to be alive, and even harder to stay that way. We're burdened to live out these days, while at the same time blessed to outlive them. This alarm is how we know we must be altered, that we must differ or die, that we must triumph or try, that while hate cannot be terminated, it can be transformed into a love that lets us live. May we not just grieve, but give. May we not just ache, but act. May our signed right to bear arms never blind our sight from shared harm. May we choose our children over chaos. May another innocent never be lost. Maybe everything hurts. Our hearts shadowed and strange, but only when everything hurts. May everything change.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. Vice Mayor Cooney.
Wow. What do you want me to do after that? That was great. Thank you so much for doing that, Commissioner Hess. That was great. I'm not going to talk long. Look, we're wearing orange tonight because we feel a sense of urgency. Too many people are dying. Too many kids are having their life snatched away from them. And there's plenty of things that can be done. Other countries don't have the same experience that we do here. There's a lot that can be done at the federal level. Sensible gun laws, mental health. At the root, doing much more about poverty and racism. So that's at the federal level, but we got a responsibility here. And 9 months ago, almost 9 months ago, there was a resolution passed declaring a public health emergency. Emergency means we got to take immediate action, quick action. And I think it's time for us to take some more action than we've taken, much more serious action. And there's people in the community that are doing wonderful things. I think our chief of police is doing a wonderful job. And I think there's a lot of officers out there that are really transforming the way they do things. But I think we as city government can do a lot. And there are cities around the country that have developed comprehensive plans to deal with local violence, and I think we can do that. We have a subcommittee, and I'm hopeful that we can come forward very soon with a set of recommendations. I know from my organizing experience, the price of a valid criticism is a workable solution, and I think that's our charge. And I hope that we can do that very, very soon.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just a couple things, I guess, a reminder here that, this is a business meeting that we have, but in many, many ways, 95% of the work happens other places, and we talk about, some of it here. But, how does that work happen? We have a great city team led by Manager Ritzma here and all the various deputy city managers and directors that do the work. That's what fills up our agenda with, 20, 30 different items, all in good categories. So thank you, and please remember to communicate to your team that how supportive we are of those efforts. So thank you, Manager Ritzma. Just other things, just to touch on some stuff, I guess just working the way through here is that I did attend the event over in Bronson Park, which was the end gun violence event. And I do have to say that Commissioner Juarez was once again one of the most eloquent speakers, and for sure, the only one everybody could hear. No, he did not. So thank you for that. Commissioner Pradel, just another reminder of something that's on the agenda here, in line with what you're talking about with our issues related to trying to be more conscious of the environment. Biodiesel, that's a project we just started last year. Smaller carbon footprint there, and still many of our big vehicles can't be run on batteries. So biodiesel is an incremental move along that line. Other work that happens, I do want to thank Commissioner Decker and Commissioner Pradel working together off the dais here to bring us some recommendations here for this important step we have to take. And there's other subcommittees who are represented here tonight. It was subcommittee, I believe, is that Commissioner Hess, Cooney, and Juarez that were working on the youth recreation, I guess I will say, subcommittee? Youth development, yep. And which is obviously intricately tied to the work of our other subcommittees. So I just want to say thank you for doing that work and getting us to that point of at least getting some things going in the community. I really appreciate those extra efforts. And I just wanted to follow up, Vice Mayor, on your comments, is that because I was directly involved in the gun violence piece, which really started initial discussions last August. I think in October is when we first met. The previous commission leadership, I was involved in that with the county commission. Passed those joint resolutions, both committed $1 million. And so I agree with you, is that, at this point, when we were talking about that, I just thought, hey, we're going to get this done in time for next summer, for sure. Here we are in October. And here we are. And I get it, we're trying to come up with something that accomplishes as many things as we can accomplish all at once. But I do feel, I guess, personal urgency about that, and I know you do as well, is that this isn't the last resource we'll ever have for this. We are not using all our ARPA dollars in this, so I'm really hoping that maybe as soon as our next commission meeting, there's been a lot of work, a lot of community discussion, that we can just get some things in place. And so I support your urgency around that, Vice Mayor, and I'm so hoping that that's going to work out so that soon we can have that back here to do this unbelievably important effort in this city that we all love. We are adjourned. I love you, Kalamazoo.